Mama Ellie, thank you for the 10 years of free living in your house. Sasha's voice sliced through the dining room like a slap. I was serving dessert, my famous sweet potato pie, when she dropped those words with a smile that chilled my blood. While you were paying for the electricity, the water, the groceries, the Wi-Fi, absolutely everything, I saved every single dime of my salary. You know what I did with that money, Ellie? She leaned forward, her eyes glittering with malice. I bought my own place, a beautiful modern house, just for Jamal and me. And now we're moving out. We're leaving you here all alone in this old house. Oh, and one more thing. We won't ever talk to you again. We're cutting off all contact, permanently. My son was sitting right beside her, nodding proudly as if his wife had just announced she had won the Nobel Prize. I just stood there, holding the dessert tray, feeling the floor move beneath my feet. I share new life stories here every day, and I'd really appreciate it if you hit subscribe and liked my video. Now, let's jump back into my story. I'm sure you'll love it if you keep listening till the end. My name is Eleanor, but everyone calls me Ellie. I'm 63 years old, and for a full decade, I was the biggest fool on the face of the earth. But on that Sunday night, at my own dinner table, facing my own son and the viper he called his wife, something inside me broke. Or maybe, finally, something was fixed. This is my story, a story about how a mother's love can become a weakness, and how that weakness can be exploited until you are left with nothing. But it is also the story of how an older woman, tired, humiliated, and invisible, found the strength to rise up and strike back. Because sometimes, justice doesn't come on its own. Sometimes, you have to create it yourself. I've always been a simple woman. I worked for 40 years as an elementary school teacher, teaching children who could barely sit still how to read. It wasn't a glamorous job, but it filled my heart. My paycheck was never large, but I learned how to manage it well. I married young to a good man named Rob, and together we had Jamal, our only son. Rob passed away 12 years ago from a massive heart attack. One morning, he was having coffee with me, laughing at something silly I'd said, and by the afternoon, he was gone. That's how fast my old life vanished. I was left alone with Jamal, who was 20 at the time and studying engineering at Georgia Tech. I swore to myself that my boy would never feel the emptiness I felt, that he would never lack anything, that I would be enough for the two of us. I kept that promise, perhaps too well. Jamal was always a good kid, studious, responsible, and loving. When he finished college, he landed a decent job at a tech firm in Atlanta. I was so proud. My son, the engineer, the man his father would have wanted him to be. For 2 years, he lived with me, saving money and planning his future. I cooked for him, washed his clothes, and treated him as if he were still my little boy, and he let me. I think we both got used to that dynamic. I needed to feel needed, and he needed to feel cared for. It was comfortable. It was safe. Until he met Sasha. The first time I saw her was on a Saturday afternoon. Jamal walked in with her, holding hands, with that expression of an idiotic man in love who believes he's found the perfect woman. "Mama, this is Sasha," he said with a huge smile. She was pretty, I can't deny that. Long dark hair, perfect skin, a figure any woman would envy. She wore a light green dress that brought out her eyes, and when she greeted me, her voice was soft, almost timid. "Mrs. Johnson, it's such a pleasure to meet you. Jamal talks about you all the time." She hugged me gently, as if I were made of glass. I liked her instantly. How foolish I was. For the first few months, Sasha was charming. She came over for Sunday dinners. She always brought a store-bought dessert. She always had kind words. "Mrs. Johnson, your house is so cozy," she'd say. "Mrs. Johnson, you cook so well." "Mrs. Johnson, Jamal is so lucky to have a mother like you." I melted with every compliment. After years of solitude, after so long of it just being me and my son, having someone else at the table made me feel complete, as if we finally had a family again. I never suspected that behind that sweet smile was a cold calculator, adding up every dollar she could squeeze out of me. It was Sasha who suggested they move in. One night after dinner, while I was pouring coffee, she took my hand delicately. "Mrs. Johnson, Jamal and I are planning to get married soon, but honestly, rent prices here in Atlanta are outrageous, and we want to save up to buy our own house someday. We don't want to start out in debt." She paused, biting her lip as if it was difficult to continue. "I know it's a lot to ask, but would it be possible for us to live with you for a while? Just until we save enough money? 6 months, maybe a year? Of course, we would help with all the expenses." Jamal looked at me with pleading eyes. "Mama, it would be perfect. We could save quickly, and you wouldn't feel so lonely in this big old house." My heart swelled. My son living with me again, a daughter-in-law to keep me company, a house filled with life and laughter. "Of course, yes," I said without a second thought. "This is your home too. You can stay as long as you need." Sasha hugged me tight. "Thank you, Mrs. Johnson. You have no idea how much this means to us. I promise you won't regret it." And in that moment, I believed every single word. They moved in a couple of weeks after the wedding. It was a small, intimate ceremony in a beautiful garden. I paid for Sasha's dress, an elegant ivory design that made her look like a princess. I also paid for the catering, the flowers, and the photographer. "It's the least I can do for my only son," I told them, when they tried to protest, though Sasha's protest lasted exactly 3 seconds before she accepted with a radiant smile. Jamal hugged me tightly that day. "You're the best mother in the world," he whispered in my ear. I cried tears of joy. How blind I was. The first few months were good. Sasha cooked sometimes, cleaned their room, and was polite and conversational. We divided the household chores naturally, like 3 adults living in harmony. She worked at a marketing firm, leaving early and coming home late. Jamal maintained his usual routine. I was still teaching, although I was thinking about retiring soon. On Sundays, we ate dinner together, watched movies, and played cards. I felt like I was part of something again. I felt useful. I felt loved. I didn't realize I was being studied, analyzed, and evaluated as a personal bank from which they could extract everything possible. The change was so gradual that I barely noticed it. First, Sasha stopped cooking. "Oh, Mama Ellie, I'm exhausted from work. Would you mind whipping up something quick?" Then she stopped cleaning the common areas. "I'm just so stressed at the office. I need to relax on the weekends." Then came the special requests. "Mama Ellie, could you make pot roast tomorrow? I'm craving it so much." "Oh, Mama Ellie, the bathroom needs a deep clean. Do you have time this week?" I accepted everything with a smile. They were small things, nothing out of the ordinary. Plus, I liked feeling needed. I liked that they depended on me. It was my way of ensuring they wouldn't leave. Then came the expenses. At first, Sasha contributed some money for groceries. Maybe $200 a month, which didn't cover even half of what we actually spent, but it was something. However, after the 6th month, those contributions became irregular. "Mama Ellie, I'm a little short this month. Would you mind if I pay you double next month?" The next month never arrived. Jamal didn't contribute anything either. "Mama, we're saving for the house. You understand, right?" And I nodded, because that was the goal, wasn't it? For them to buy their house and start their life. In the meantime, I paid for everything. The electricity bill, which skyrocketed because Sasha left the air conditioning running all day. The water bill, because now she took 2 showers a day. The gas bill, because I was cooking for 3 instead of 1. The internet plan was upgraded because Sasha needed faster speed to work from home. The groceries that used to cost me $300 a month now reached $800. I watched my savings slowly dwindle, but I told myself it was temporary, that they would soon leave and everything would go back to normal. Sasha started changing in other ways too. She became more demanding, more critical. She stopped calling me Mrs. Johnson after the first year. "This stew is too salty. Can you make another one?" "Oh, Ellie, why didn't you dust the living room? I have friends coming over tomorrow." She no longer asked, she ordered. And like a fool, I obeyed. Jamal never said a word. When I tried to talk to him about his wife's behavior, he defended her. "Mama, Sasha works hard. She's stressed. Don't be so sensitive." Every time I mentioned the expenses, he deflected the conversation. "Mama, we talked about this. We're seriously saving. Just a little more time." A little more time turned into 2 years, then 3, then 5. Sasha started inviting friends over, young women, done up with makeup, loud, who laughed hysterically in my living room while I served them coffee and cookies. I listened to them talk about their shopping sprees, their trips, their perfect lives. Sasha showed off her new clothes, her expensive shoes, her designer handbags. "Where do you get all that money?" one of her friends asked once. Sasha laughed. "I have my secrets. Let's just say I know how to manage my resources very well." They all laughed as if it were the most ingenious joke in the world. I was in the kitchen washing dishes, wearing the same worn dress I'd owned for 5 years because I couldn't afford to buy new clothes. All my money went into maintaining that house, into feeding 2 adults who earned more than I did and contributed absolutely nothing. Sundays were still sacred, or so I thought. It was the only day when the 3 of us sat together without rushing, without distractions. I cooked all day, preparing Jamal's favorite dishes, striving to create those moments of family connection I longed for. But Sasha always found something to criticize. "This chicken is a little dry, Ellie. The potatoes need more salt. The salad has too much vinegar." Never a thank you, never a compliment, just criticism wrapped in a fake smile. And Jamal remained silent, eating, nodding when his wife spoke, ignoring me when I tried to join the conversation. 8 years went by. 8 years of paying for everything, of cooking for them, of cleaning up their messes, of living like a servant in my own house. My life savings were practically gone. My retirement fund, which was supposed to be my safety cushion, was consumed month after month. I was 62, exhausted, with aching knees from standing so much, with a back shattered from carrying grocery bags. Meanwhile, Sasha looked better and better. New clothes every week, perfect manicure, hair always done at the most expensive salon in town. Jamal looked prosperous too, with his elegant watch and impeccable suits. And I, his mother, the owner of the house they lived in for free, looked older, more worn out, and more invisible every day. Until one afternoon, something changed. I was cleaning their room, something Sasha had stopped doing years ago, when I found some papers sticking out of a drawer. They were bank statements from Sasha's account. My hands trembled when I saw the numbers. She had saved over $150,000. $150,000. While I was draining my account to pay for their meals, she was accumulating a fortune. I kept looking, my heart pounding. I found more documents, receipts for monthly deposits, all labeled with the same note. Own house savings. Every month for years, she had put away almost her entire salary. Not a single cent had been spent on my house. Not one. I sat on their bed with those papers shaking in my hands, feeling the air stop in my lungs. $150,000. While I bought their food, paid their electricity, their water, their Wi-Fi, she kept every cent. While I stopped buying myself clothes, stopped going out with my friends, stopped allowing myself any small luxury, she was secretly building a fortune behind my back. I felt dizzy, betrayed, and stupid. But above all, I felt rage. A cold, deep anger that was born from some dark place inside me I had never known. I put the papers back exactly where I found them. I didn't say anything. That night, I ate dinner with them as if nothing had happened. Sasha complained that the meat was overcooked. Jamal talked about a boring project at his job. I smiled, nodded, and cleaned the table afterward. But inside, something had changed forever. I was no longer the naive mother who believed her sacrifice was appreciated. I was a woman who had finally opened her eyes. And when a woman like me, a woman who has been walked all over for years, finally wakes up, things can get very interesting. The next few days, I dedicated myself to observing, truly observing, and what I saw turned my stomach. Sasha wasn't just selfish, she was cruel. I watched her throw perfectly good food in the trash because she didn't feel like eating it anymore. I watched her leave lights on in empty rooms, the water running while she brushed her teeth, the heat cranked up in the middle of winter, all with absolute indifference because she wasn't paying for any of it. I listened to her phone conversations with her friends, laughing about me. "The old lady is so clueless," she'd say. "She actually thinks we're going to buy a house and leave. Why would we? I have everything free here. It's like living in a 5-star hotel where the maid works for free." Her friends laughed. On the other side of the door, I held back my tears. But the thing that hurt the most was Jamal, my son, the boy I raised alone after his father died, the boy for whom I sacrificed everything. One night, I heard him talking to Sasha in their room. I was walking down the hallway when I heard my name. I stopped, not wanting to eavesdrop, but unable to move. "Do you think your mom suspects anything?" Sasha asked. Jamal laughed. "My mama? Please. She'd do anything for me. She always has. We could live here another 10 years and she would never say a thing. She loves feeling needed." Sasha replied in a silky voice. "You're right. She's perfect. Once we finally have enough money saved, we'll buy the house, ditch her, and that's it. She'll be left here alone. But hey, she's old anyway. It's not like she was going to do anything exciting with her life." They laughed together, my son and his wife, laughing at the stupid old woman who was supporting them. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed awake in my bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling that everything I had believed about my life was a lie. My son didn't love me. He used me. And I had allowed it. Worse, I had enabled it. I had become their perfect victim, their inexhaustible resource. And now they had a plan. Stay until they squeezed out the last cent, and then disappear, leaving me alone, without savings, without dignity, without anything. Well, I thought as I stared into the darkness, two can play that game. If they could plan in secret, so could I. The next morning, I called Aisha. Aisha had been my best friend since college, one of the few people who remained in my life after all these years. She was a lawyer, smart, direct, the type of woman who wouldn't let anyone walk all over her. We met at a coffee shop far from my house. I told her everything, the years of emotional abuse, the draining expenses, Sasha's secret savings, the conversation I had overheard. Aisha listened in silence, her expression hardening with every word. When I finished, she slammed her hand down on the table. "Ellie, this is financial elder abuse, and your son is an accessory. What are you going to do?" I looked her in the eye. "I'm going to protect myself, and I need your help." Aisha designed the plan. It was simple but effective. The house was in my name, completely paid off for 15 years. It was my only real asset, the only thing of value I had left. "Transfer the property to my name," Aisha said. "I'll hold it in a 6-month trust. If they try anything legal, they won't be able to touch you. The house will be protected. And when the time is right, we sell it, you take the money, and you start over." I hesitated. It was a huge risk, but Aisha was my friend of 40 years. If I couldn't trust her, I couldn't trust anyone. "Do it," I finally said, and so began my silent counterattack. The transfer took 3 weeks. 3 weeks during which I stuck to my normal routine. I cooked, I cleaned, I smiled, I pretended. Sasha and Jamal noticed nothing different. Why would they? I was predictable, reliable, manipulable. Poor Ellie, always available, always generous. They never imagined that behind that facade of a devoted mother, I was moving pieces on a chessboard they didn't even know existed. Aisha handled everything with absolute discretion. No documents came to my house. All signatures were done at her office. By the time Sasha and Jamal realized what had happened, it would be far too late. In the meantime, I kept investigating. I checked every paper they left lying around. I listened to every conversation I could. I discovered that Sasha earned almost $4,000 a month. Jamal earned $5,000. Together, they brought home $9,000 monthly and contributed absolutely nothing. I, with my retirement pension of $1,800, paid for everything. The monthly household expenses were approximately $2,500. That meant I was left with less than $500 a month for my own needs, while they saved almost all their money. I did the math. In 10 years, they had likely saved over $300,000 combined, living completely free at my expense. I also discovered something else, something that made my blood boil. I found messages on Jamal's phone that he had left in the living room. Messages with Sasha where they discussed what they would do when I finally kicked the bucket. That's how they put it. Those exact words. They talked about selling my house, splitting the money, and buying something bigger with the profits. Jamal wrote, "She has no other relatives. Everything will eventually be ours. We just have to wait." Sasha responded, "Or we could speed up the process. If we stress her out enough, maybe she'll get sick faster. Stress works wonders." I read it 3 times to make sure I had understood correctly. My daughter-in-law was actively suggesting accelerating my death, and my son didn't say no. He simply replied with a laughing emoji. I put the phone back where I found it. I walked to the bathroom. I looked at myself in the mirror. I saw a 63-year-old woman with gray hair I no longer had money to dye, with deep wrinkles around her eyes, with the tired skin of someone who had worked all her life. But I also saw something else. I saw fury. I saw determination. I saw a woman who was no longer going to be a victim. "You're going to regret this," I whispered to my reflection. "Both of you are going to regret this." And I started planning the perfect moment for my revenge. 2 more months passed after the house transfer, 2 months in which I perfected my performance. I became the same old Ellie, perhaps even more subservient, quieter, more invisible. Sasha noticed the change and interpreted it as defeat. "You look tired, Ellie," she said to me one day with fake concern. "Maybe you're aging too fast. You should take better care of yourself." She smiled with that poisonous sweetness she had perfected. I just nodded, lowering my gaze like a defeated woman. Inside, I was smiling. I let her believe that she had completely broken me. That would make her more careless, more confident. And confident people make mistakes. During those weeks, I also started documenting everything. Aisha had advised me to gather evidence just in case. I photographed Sasha's bank statements every time she left them visible. I recorded conversations on my phone where she and Jamal discussed their plans. I kept the receipts for all the groceries and household purchases, showing that I paid for absolutely everything. I made a detailed list of every monthly expense, every bill, every dollar I had invested in keeping those 2 leeches. Aisha reviewed everything and nodded in approval. "This is pure gold, Ellie. If they ever try to sue you or claim anything, we'll bury them with this." I felt powerful for the first time in years. Sasha began to be openly cruel. She no longer feigned respect or gratitude. She treated me like an incompetent employee. "Ellie, this house is a mess. What have you been doing all day?" she yelled at me one afternoon when she got home from work. I had spent all morning cleaning, but she had come in and thrown her coat on the sofa, left her shoes in the middle of the living room, and spilled coffee in the kitchen. "I'm sorry," I murmured, picking up her things. She scoffed. "You should be. Jamal and I work hard. The least you can do is keep the house decent." Jamal, sitting on the armchair with his laptop, didn't even look up. His silence was support. His indifference was complicity. One night, I heard Sasha talking to someone on the phone. She was in her room, but her voice was loud enough for me to hear from the hallway. "Yeah, Mom, we almost have enough money. 1 more year, maybe less, and we'll buy our dream house. The old lady? Don't worry about her. When we leave, we'll never see her again. I already talked to Jamal. We're cutting off all contact, changing our numbers, blocking her social media, everything. She'll be left alone in that old house with her memories and her bitterness. Honestly, I don't know how she lasted so long being so pathetic." She laughed, that high-pitched, unpleasant sound that I had grown to despise. My hand clenched the edge of the wall. I breathed deeply. Soon, I told myself, very soon. I decided the perfect time would be Sunday. Sunday was sacred to them. The day I prepared the special dinner, the day we sat together as a family. It would be poetic that on that day, in that scene of false normalcy, I would finally show my hand. I talked to Aisha, and we scheduled everything. She would have the documents ready, the evidence organized, everything prepared for the confrontation. "Are you sure you want to do it this way?" she asked me. "You could just leave them a letter and be done with it. Walk away without giving them the satisfaction of a confrontation." I looked at her squarely. "No, Aisha. I need to see their faces. I need them to know I'm not the fool they thought I was. I need my moment." She smiled. "Then you'll have it." The Saturday before the big day, Sasha did something that almost made me lose control early. She came home with shopping bags, new clothes, expensive shoes, designer handbags, all bought with the money she had saved while I paid for her food. She paraded through the living room, modeling each item. "What do you think of this coral dress, Ellie?" she asked, twirling. It was beautiful. It probably cost more than $500. "It's very nice," I said with a neutral voice. She laughed. "I know. I'm going to wear it to the housewarming party for our new place. It's going to be spectacular. Too bad you won't be invited." She said it as if it were a joke, but her eyes held the truth. Jamal laughed from the sofa, too. "Mama isn't much for parties anyway, right, Mama?" They looked at me, expecting me to shrink, to feel small. Instead, I smiled. "You're right, son. I'm not much for parties." And I went to my room, leaving them confused by my lack of reaction. That night, alone in my room, I took out all the documents I had been keeping. Sasha's bank statements, the messages I had photographed from Jamal's phone, the receipts for my payments, the recordings of their cruel conversations, the house deed now in Aisha's name, the letter from my lawyer notifying them that the property would be sold. Everything was there, organized, perfect. Tomorrow, I thought, tomorrow, everything changes. I went to bed early but couldn't sleep. The anticipation kept me awake. It wasn't nervousness. It was excitement. For the first time in 10 years, I was in control. Sunday arrived with a gray sky, appropriate for what was to come. I woke up early and started cooking. I prepared everything Jamal loved: roast chicken with potatoes, fresh salad, homemade biscuits, and of course, my sweet potato pie. I wanted everything to be perfect, for this last Sunday to be etched in their memories. Sasha came downstairs at noon, yawning in her pajamas. "Smells good," she said with little enthusiasm. "What time are we eating?" "At 3, I replied. She poured herself coffee and sat down to check her phone, ignoring me completely. Jamal appeared an hour later, also in comfortable clothes, also glued to his cell phone. Neither offered to help. Neither asked if I needed anything. They were like two guests in a hotel waiting to be served. At 3 o'clock sharp, the table was set, plates perfectly placed, glasses full, silverware shining. I had put in a lot of effort. Sasha and Jamal sat down without saying thank you. They started serving themselves without waiting for me to sit down. It was their routine. I sat in my place at the end of the table and watched them eat. Sasha criticized that the chicken was a little dry. Jamal said the salad needed more lemon. I just nodded without defending myself. We ate in an uncomfortable silence, interrupted only by their occasional comments about their jobs, their plans for the week, their lives where I didn't matter. When they finished the main course, I got up to fetch dessert. I brought the perfect golden pie with its shining caramel glaze. I placed it in the center of the table. As I was serving it, Sasha wiped her mouth with her napkin and cleared her throat. There was something in her posture, something theatrical, that put me on alert. Jamal looked at her and smiled. Something was about to happen. And then she spoke. "Ellie, Jamal and I have an announcement to make." Her voice was cheerful, almost sing-song. My heart started beating faster. This was the moment I had been waiting for. "Go ahead," I said calmly, sitting back down. Sasha leaned forward, her eyes gleaming with that malicious shine I now knew so well. And then she let out the words they had been rehearsing, the words they thought would destroy me. "Mama Ellie, thank you for the 10 years of free living in your house. While you were paying for the electricity, the water, the groceries, the Wi-Fi, absolutely everything, I saved every single dime of my salary. I bought my own place, a beautiful, modern house just for Jamal and me. And now we're moving out. We're leaving you here all alone in this old house, and we won't ever talk to you again. We're cutting off all contact permanently." She paused dramatically, savoring my supposed agony. "We move next month. Goodbye, Ellie." The silence that followed her words was thick, heavy. Sasha looked at me with a triumphant smile, expecting to see me cry, beg, or break down. Jamal had his arms crossed, his chin raised, proud of his wife, proud of having used me for a full decade. They expected my collapse. They expected tears, despair, pleas for them not to abandon me. But I just sat there, my hands on the table, staring at them. And then I did something they didn't expect. I smiled. Not a sad or defeated smile, but a genuine, almost amused smile. "Is that all?" I asked in a quiet voice. Sasha blinked, her triumphant expression wavering for a second. "Excuse me?" I said, "Is that all? Are you done with your speech?" My tone was almost casual, as if we were discussing the weather. Sasha straightened in her chair, her smile returning, but now with a touch of confusion. "Ellie, I don't know if you understood what I just said. We're leaving. You're alone forever." She emphasized every word as if I were slow to comprehend. I nodded slowly. "Oh, I understood you perfectly. You lived here for 10 years for free. You saved all your money while I paid for absolutely everything. You bought a house. You're leaving. You're cutting contact. Yes, I heard you. It's a brilliant plan, Sasha. Truly brilliant." My sarcasm was evident, but they were too confused to process it. Jamal leaned forward. "Mama, are you okay? I thought you'd be, I don't know, more upset." I laughed. It was a short, dry laugh. "Why would I be upset, Jamal? After all, you two have been so considerate, so generous with me all these years." The sarcasm dripped from every word. Sasha frowned. Something wasn't going as she had planned. I wasn't reacting like the docile victim she expected. "Ellie, maybe you're not grasping the magnitude of what's happening. We are leaving you alone, without family, without anyone." Her voice now held a touch of irritation. I was ruining her moment of glory. I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms, maintaining that mysterious smile. "Sasha, Jamal, I have to tell you something. A very interesting coincidence." My voice was calm and controlled. "It turns out I have some news too, and I think you're going to love it." I got up from the table slowly. I walked to the sideboard where I had left a thick manila envelope. I had placed it there that morning, anticipating this exact moment. I took it and returned to the table, placing it in front of me. Sasha stared at the envelope as if it were a venomous snake. "What is that?" Jamal asked in a tense voice. "This," I said, patting the envelope, "is the result of 6 months of very careful planning. You see, a few months ago, I had an epiphany too. I discovered some very interesting things." I opened the envelope slowly, savoring every second of their growing discomfort. I took out the first document and slid it across the table toward Sasha. "Do you recognize this?" It was a copy of her bank statement, the one showing the $150,000 saved. Sasha went pale. How did you get that?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "Oh, you left it in your room, along with many other interesting things." I pulled out more papers. "Here are receipts for all your luxurious purchases. Clothes, shoes, handbags, trips, all paid for with the money you saved while living free in my house." Jamal tried to intervene. "Mama, you're invading our privacy. You can't just go through our stuff." I looked at him with an icy calm. "Privacy? In my house? The house I paid for, that I maintained, where you lived without contributing a single cent for 10 years? Don't talk to me about privacy, Jamal." I took out another document. But wait, there's more. This is particularly interesting. It was a printed transcript of the messages between Jamal and Sasha, where they talked about waiting for me to kick the bucket to sell my house. The messages where Sasha suggested that stress could accelerate my death. I placed it in front of Jamal. "Would you like to explain this?" His face lost all color. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Sasha tried to regain control. That was taken out of context. It was just a stupid joke." "A joke?" My voice rose for the first time. "Conspiring about my death is a joke?" I stood up from the chair, bracing my hands on the table, leaning toward them. "Let me tell you what's not a joke. 6 months ago, after discovering your little plan, I did something very smart. I transferred the ownership of this house to my lawyer, Aisha's name." The shock on their faces was instantaneous and absolute. "What?" Sasha jumped up, her chair falling backward with a loud crash. "That's impossible! This house is yours." "It was mine," I corrected with satisfaction. "It's now in a trust under Aisha's name, and she, following my instructions, is going to sell it." Jamal finally found his voice, though it sounded strangled. "You can't do that. I'm your son. I inherit this house." I laughed, a long, bitter laugh. "Inherit? Oh, Jamal, sweet, naive Jamal, you don't inherit anything anymore." I pulled another document from the envelope. "This is my updated will signed 4 months ago. I have completely removed you as a beneficiary. Every cent I have, every asset, every possession goes to charitable foundations. You receive nothing." I saw the exact moment reality hit him. His eyes widened, his mouth dropped open. "No, Mama, you can't." "Yes, I can. And I did." I turned to Sasha. "And as for you, my dear daughter-in-law, I have something special." I pulled out a detailed report. "This is a complete record of every dollar I spent maintaining this house over the last 10 years. Electricity, water, gas, groceries, Wi-Fi, repairs, taxes. It all adds up to approximately $250,000. Sasha recoiled as if I had slapped her. "So what? We don't owe you anything. You offered us to live here, right?" I nodded. "I offered you to live here temporarily while you saved for your own house, with the implicit agreement that you would contribute to expenses, which you never did. And now I discover that you not only didn't contribute, but you consciously exploited me, planning to abandon me without remorse." I pulled the last document from the envelope. "This is a legal notice. The house will be sold in 30 days. You have that time to find a place to live and leave. If you don't do so voluntarily, Aisha will initiate an eviction process." Sasha stumbled, grabbing the back of her chair. Her face had gone from pale to a sickly greenish hue. This can't be happening." Jamal stood up abruptly, his face contorted in fury. "You're a bitter old woman. All we did was accept your help. You offered us to live here." "Yes," my voice was cold steel. "I offered you help. I didn't offer to become your financial slave. I didn't offer to endure years of humiliation, exploitation, and cruelty. And I definitely didn't offer you the opportunity to laugh at me while planning to abandon me and cut me out of your lives forever." Sasha started hyperventilating. No. This wasn't in the plan. We... You what?" I interrupted her. "You thought I was too stupid to notice, too weak to defend myself. I underestimated you for years, but you underestimated me." I walked toward the window, turning my back to them. "The house is being sold, you are leaving, and I am starting over. With the sale money, I'll buy a small apartment for myself, something manageable without parasites." Sasha suddenly lunged at me, grabbing my arm. "Ellie, please, we can fix this. I'll pay everything we owe you, the $250,000. I promise." I looked at her with contempt. "With what money, Sasha?" "Oh, right, with the $150,000 you saved living here for free. But wait, that doesn't even cover everything you owe me. Plus, you already bought your new house, remember? I'm sure you used those savings as a down payment." Her silence confirmed it. "We can sell the new house," she stammered. "We can get the money back." "I'm not interested in your money," I said firmly, pulling my arm out of her grasp. "This is no longer about money. It's about dignity. It's about respect. It's about justice." Jamal stepped closer, his eyes pleading. "Mama, I'm your son. Your only son. Dad would have wanted us to support each other." Those words were the final straw. I turned on him with a fury I had been containing for years. "Don't you dare mention your father. He would be ashamed of what you've become. A man who lets his wife abuse his mother. A man who plans to abandon the woman who sacrificed everything for him. Your father was honorable, hardworking, generous. You are his opposite." Jamal recoiled as if I had physically struck him. Sasha started crying, dramatic, loud sobs. "This is so unfair. You're going to leave us on the street." "No," I corrected. "You two have high-paying jobs. You have savings. You have your beautiful new house that you bought with the money you got by exploiting me. You won't be on the street. You'll be exactly where you plan to be. It's just that I won't be staying here alone, miserable, waiting for you to forget me. I'm moving on too." Sasha sank into her chair, still crying, though now her sobs sounded more like rage than sadness. Jamal paced the room, running his hands through his hair, muttering incoherent things. I remained standing, firm, watching them crumble. This was exactly what I had imagined during all those months of planning, seeing them lose control, seeing them realize that their perfect victim had turned out to be far smarter than they had ever anticipated. "I'm not finished yet," I said in a quiet voice. They both looked up, their faces showing a mixture of fear and desperation. "There are a few more things you need to know." I walked back to the table and took out an additional folder I had kept hidden. During these last few months, I didn't just transfer the house and update my will. I also did some other interesting digging. I opened the folder and took out several documents with official seals. For example, I discovered that for the last 3 years, Jamal, you gave me money supposedly to help with household expenses, remember? You gave me $200 every month and said it was your contribution. Jamal nodded nervously, not understanding where I was going. "Well, it turns out Sasha took that money from my purse as soon as I put it away. I found it registered in her bank deposits, small amounts, $200 monthly for 3 years. That adds up to more than $7,000. Sasha jumped up. "That's a lie." "Is it a lie?" I pulled out the bank statements with the dates highlighted. Each deposit matches exactly the day after Jamal gave me the money. Care to explain that coincidence? The silence was deafening. Jamal looked at Sasha with an expression of utter confusion. "Sasha, is that true?" She stammered, searching for an excuse, but found no credible one. I needed that money to save faster." "You were stealing from my mother." Jamal's voice rose. "I thought I was helping with the house expenses, and you were stealing it." I saw the rift forming between them and decided to widen it a little more. "Is there anything else I should know, Jamal? That house you bought, the one you were bragging about a few minutes ago, whose name is it in?" Sasha paled again. Jamal looked at her. "It's in both our names. Obviously, we're married." "Are you sure?" I asked with false innocence. "Maybe you should check the property documents." Jamal turned toward Sasha. "What is she talking about?" Sasha tried to laugh, but it sounded forced and nervous. "Don't listen to her. She's trying to break us up. It's obvious the house is in both our names." "Then you won't mind if Jamal verifies the documents right now," I said, crossing my arms. "In fact, why don't you bring them down? They must be in your room with the rest of your important papers." Sasha froze. I don't know exactly where they are right now." Jamal was already walking toward the stairs. "I know where you keep the important documents. I'm going to look for them." "Jamal, wait!" Sasha ran after him, but he was already climbing the steps 2 at a time. I heard them arguing upstairs, drawers opening, papers rustling. I stayed in the dining room, waiting patiently. I knew exactly what he would find because I had seen those documents myself weeks ago. 5 minutes later, Jamal came down the stairs with a folder in his hand and an expression of absolute betrayal on his face. Sasha was behind him, trying to explain, her words tumbling over one another. "Jamal, let me explain. There's a reason." "A reason?" he yelled. It was the first time in 10 years I had heard him raise his voice like that. "The house is only in your name. Only yours." He hurled the documents onto the dining room table. Sure enough, the property deed showed only Sasha Vance as the owner. I thought it would be easier for the paperwork, Sasha stammered. We were going to add your name later. Later when? Jamal was furious now, his face red, the veins in his neck prominent. We spent all our money on that house, and it's not even in my name. What happens if we get divorced? I have nothing. Sasha tried to touch him, but he pulled away. We're not going to get divorced, honey, trust me. I decided to add more fuel to the fire. Jamal, did you know Sasha has been looking for divorce lawyers? They both turned to me. What? Jamal seemed to be on the verge of a breakdown. I took another document from my magic folder. 2 months ago, Sasha consulted with 3 different law firms specializing in divorce. I have the emails. Sasha shook her head violently. That's false! You're making things up! Am I making things up? I extended the printed papers to Jamal. Read the dates. Read the contents of the consultations. She specifically asked about how to keep assets acquired during the marriage in case of separation. Jamal read the documents with trembling hands. His expression shifted from fury to something much worse, absolute devastation. Sasha, you were going to leave me. His voice sounded broken. All this time, you were planning to ditch me once we had enough money. Sasha opened her mouth to deny it, but the evidence was irrefutable. I was just exploring options, just in case. It doesn't mean anything. Just in case what? Jamal dropped the papers. Just in case you decided you didn't need me anymore? Just in case you found someone better? Just in case you decided you wanted the house all to yourself? Tears started rolling down his cheeks. My son, the man who had been so proud of his manipulative wife, was finally seeing the truth, and it hurt. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Jamal, Sasha said pleadingly, you're the one who doesn't understand. I did all of this for us. For our future. Our future? He laughed bitterly. There is no us in anything you did. The house is in your name. You consulted divorce lawyers. You stole the money I gave my mother. What part of that was for us? Sasha turned to me with pure hatred in her eyes. This is your fault. You put these ideas in his head. You're manipulating him. I laughed, a genuine, liberating laugh. I'm manipulating him, Sasha. All I did was show him the truth. You manipulated yourself with your own greed and deceit. Jamal sat down heavily on the sofa, his head in his hands. I can't believe I was so blind. For years, Mama, for years, I treated you like you didn't matter. I let Sasha mistreat you. I supported every horrible decision she made, and all this time, she was planning to betray me too. His voice cracked. I'm an idiot. I wouldn't contradict him. He was an idiot, but he was also my son, and a very small part of me felt compassion for him. A very small part. Sasha attempted one last desperate move. She fell to her knees in front of me, clasping her hands in supplication. Ellie, please, I know I made mistakes. I know I was cruel, but we can fix it. You can keep the house. We'll leave. Just don't destroy us like this. I looked down at her. This woman who had made my life miserable for a decade, who had conspired to abandon me, who had possibly wished for my death. Sasha, I'm not destroying you. I'm freeing you. Now you can go to your precious new house, the one you bought with the money you saved by exploiting me. You can live there alone, or with Jamal, if he still wants you after all this. But it won't be on my property, not with my blessing, not with my silence. I stepped away from her. You have 30 days. I suggest you use them wisely. Jamal looked up, his eyes red and swollen. Mama, I'm sorry. I know it doesn't mean anything now, but I'm so sorry. I looked at him for a long moment. This was the boy I had carried in my arms, the boy I had taught to read, to ride a bike, to be a good man. Somewhere along the way, I had failed, or maybe he had chosen to fail. I wasn't sure which was worse. Jamal, your apology doesn't change anything. Actions have consequences. For 10 years you treated me like a personal bank, like a maid, like something less than human. And you did it consciously. You can't undo that with, "I'm sorry." He nodded slowly, accepting the truth of my words. "Will you ever forgive me?" he asked. I considered his question carefully. Maybe someday, but that day is not today. And forgiveness doesn't mean things go back to the way they were. That will never happen again. Sasha finally stood up from the floor, her mask of vulnerability dropping to reveal the cold, calculating face she had been hiding all this time. "You know what, Ellie? I'm glad this happened. I'm glad you finally showed your true colors. We always knew you were a bitter, resentful old woman. Now everyone will see it." I smiled at her last pathetic attempt to hurt me. "Sasha, you can tell whoever you want, whatever you want. I have complete documentation of every dollar I spent, every abuse I suffered, every lie you told. If you try to defame me, I will bury you with evidence. And believe me, after all these years of enduring your cruelty, I will have no problem making it public." Her bravado vanished instantly. She knew I was serious. "Now," I said, addressing both of them, "I suggest you start packing. The clock is ticking." The next few days were strangely quiet in the house. Sasha and Jamal moved like ghosts, avoiding me, avoiding each other. Meals were no longer shared. I ate alone in the kitchen while they hid in their room or went out to eat. The atmosphere was so tense you could cut it with a knife. But I was at peace. For the first time in years, I felt like I was breathing clean air. I no longer had to pretend. I no longer had to submit. I no longer had to be invisible in my own house. I walked through the hallways with my head held high, knowing that every day that passed was one less day with them under my roof. Aisha came to visit a week after the confrontation. We sat in the backyard with coffee, away from prying ears. "How are things going?" she asked, studying my face. "They're packing slowly, resentfully, but they're doing it," I replied, taking a sip of my coffee. "Sasha barely speaks to me. Jamal tries to start conversations sometimes. I think he's looking for some way to fix things, but I have nothing to say to him." Aisha nodded in approval. "Good. Maintain your distance. The house already has 2 purchase offers. Both good. You could get close to $300,000 from the sale." I smiled. $300,000. After paying commissions and legal fees, I would have enough to buy a comfortable apartment and have a financial cushion for my golden years. I could finally live without the constant pressure of supporting 2 parasitic adults. One evening, about 2 weeks after the big confrontation, I heard raised voices coming from Sasha and Jamal's room. It wasn't my intention to listen, but the walls of the house were thin, and they didn't bother to lower their volume. "I can't believe you were so stupid," Jamal yelled. "You put the house only in your name. You consulted divorce lawyers. What were you thinking?" Sasha's voice was defensive and sharp. "I was thinking about protecting myself. You're a weak man, Jamal. You always let your mother control you. I needed to make sure I had something that was just mine." "Weak?" Jamal's voice sounded wounded. "I followed you in everything. I supported every horrible decision you made. I let us mistreat my mother for years, and this is how you repay me? Planning to leave me with nothing? Oh, please, don't play the victim now. You knew exactly what we were doing. Don't pretend you're innocent." She was right about that. Jamal wasn't innocent. He had been an active participant in my exploitation, not just a passive spectator. But it was interesting to watch their relationship crumble under the weight of their own lies and betrayals. Sasha had built her perfect plan: exploit the stupid mother-in-law, save all the money, buy a house only in her name, and eventually dispose of both me and Jamal. It was brilliant in its cruelty, but like all plans built on deceit, it fell apart the moment the truth came to light. "I don't want to talk about this anymore," Sasha said in a tired voice. "We need to focus on moving. We have less than 2 weeks." "Moving to a house that is only yours," Jamal replied bitterly. "Yes, unless you'd prefer to sleep on the street." The silence that followed was heavy, and final. The next day, Jamal knocked on my bedroom door. It was early morning, barely dawn. "Mama, can I talk to you?" His voice was soft, almost childlike. It reminded me of the boy who used to wake me up on Saturdays, asking me to make him pancakes. I opened the door, but didn't invite him in. "What do you need, Jamal?" He looked terrible, deep circles under his eyes, unshaven stubble, wrinkled clothes. "I just wanted to tell you that Sasha and I are probably getting separated." I didn't show any emotion. "That's between the two of you. I know you don't care, and I don't blame you," he continued, looking at the floor. "But I need you to know that I realize now everything we did, how cruel we were. And you were right. Dad would be ashamed of me." His eyes welled up with tears. "I'm ashamed of myself." Part of me wanted to comfort him, hug him, tell him everything would be okay, as I had done 1,000 times when he was a child. But that part was small and buried under layers of pain and betrayal. "Jamal, I appreciate you acknowledging your mistakes. That's a step. But I can't give you the forgiveness you're looking for. Not yet. Maybe never." He nodded, tears falling freely. "I understand. I wanted you to know that I'm sorry. I really am." He turned to leave, but I stopped him. Jamal turned back, hope in his eyes. "Learn from this. Be better. Not for me, but for yourself. Because if you continue down this path, you will end up alone and miserable, with no one who truly loves you." He swallowed hard and nodded before walking away down the hall. I closed the door and leaned against it, feeling the weight of 32 years of motherhood on my shoulders. Sasha, on the other hand, never attempted to apologize or reconcile. She maintained her cold, hostile attitude until the very end. I watched her pack her things with aggressive, brusque movements, muttering insults that I could hear perfectly but chose to ignore. One afternoon, I found her in the kitchen making tea. I decided to try one last conversation, not for her, but for my own peace of mind. "Sasha, did you ever care about me? Even a little bit?" She turned to me, surprised by the question. For a moment, I saw something in her eyes, perhaps a flicker of humanity, but it quickly faded. "Honestly, Ellie, no, I never cared about you. You were a means to an end, a way to live for free while I saved money, nothing more." Her brutal honesty was almost refreshing. "At least you're honest now," I said quietly. "That's more than I expected." She slammed her cup down hard on the counter. "You know what's the most pathetic part of all this? That you allowed it. For 10 years, you let us walk all over you, let us use you, let us humiliate you, let us treat you like trash, and you never said anything. So yes, I used you, but you let me." Her words were designed to hurt me, to make me feel guilty, but they no longer held power over me. "You're right," I said calmly. "I allowed it because I loved my son, and I wanted to believe you were good people. That was my mistake. But the difference between you and me, Sasha, is that I learned from my mistake. I changed. I defended myself. You are still the same cruel, selfish person you always were, and that's something you'll have to live with for the rest of your life." She glared at me with pure hatred before storming out of the kitchen, leaving her tea untouched. The last days before their departure were mechanical, boxes piled in the hallway, furniture wrapped in plastic, the house slowly emptying of their presence. Aisha had coordinated with the moving company to ensure everything went smoothly. I didn't want any last-minute drama. The morning of their move arrived with a bright, clear sky, ironic considering the darkness of the situation. The moving truck arrived at 8 o'clock. Husky men started loading boxes and furniture. Sasha supervised everything with a hard expression, barking orders like a general on a battlefield. Jamal helped in silence, avoiding my gaze every time our paths crossed in the house. By noon, almost everything was loaded. The house looked strangely empty without their belongings. I could see the marks on the walls where pictures had hung, the empty spaces where furniture had been. It was as if their presence was being systematically erased, and the feeling was tremendously liberating. Sasha was the first to leave. She stood at the front door, looking at me one last time. "I hope you're happy," she said, venom in her voice. "You destroyed a marriage and left your son with nothing." "No," I corrected firmly. "You two destroyed your own marriage with lies and betrayals. I merely exposed the truth. What you did with that truth was your choice." She scoffed and walked out the door without saying goodbye. I watched her get into her new car, another luxury bought with money saved at my expense, and drive away. I felt no sadness, only relief. Jamal stayed until the end, making sure everything was loaded correctly. When the last piece of furniture was put onto the truck, he approached me. We were standing in the empty living room, our voices echoing against the bare walls. "Mama," he began, his voice trembling slightly, "I know I have no right to ask for anything, but is there any possibility that someday we could have a relationship again? Not like before, but something." I looked at him, this man who was my son, but also a stranger. "Jamal, I don't know what the future holds for us. Right now, I need time. I need to heal. I need to rebuild my life without the shadow of what you both did to me. If you are ever ready to be a true son, one who respects and values me, maybe we can talk, but I can't promise you anything." He nodded sadly. "It's more than I deserve." He leaned in as if to hug me, but stopped himself. "Take care, Mama." "You too, Jamal." And with that, he left. The door closed behind Jamal with a soft but definitive sound. I remained standing in the center of the empty room, surrounded by silence. A silence that was not oppressive or lonely, but liberating. For the first time in 10 years, the house was completely mine again. There were no voices criticizing my food. There were no heavy footsteps on the stairs at midnight. There was no tension floating in the air like a toxic cloud. Only peace. I walked slowly through each room, touching the walls, looking out the windows, silently saying goodbye to this place that had been my home for so many years. Soon, this too would change, but for now, I enjoyed this moment of transition. That night, I slept better than I had in years. There were no nightmares. There were no anxious awakenings wondering what new humiliation awaited me the next day. Just deep, restful sleep. When I woke up the next morning, the sun streamed through my window in a way that seemed different, brighter, warmer. I got up without rushing. I made coffee just for myself. I sat at the kitchen table, which had once been the scene of so many tense dinners, and I simply existed. I existed without demands, without criticism, without having to be invisible. It was glorious. I called Aisha to update her on the sale process. "The offers are still firm," she informed me. "We can close the sale in 2 weeks if you're ready." I was ready, more than ready. The following days, I dedicated myself to looking for my new home. Aisha accompanied me to see several apartments. Some were too big, others too expensive, others in areas that didn't convince me. But finally, we found a perfect one. It was a 2-bedroom apartment in a modern building with lots of natural light, a small but functional kitchen, and a terrace overlooking a park. Most importantly, it was completely mine. No one else would live there. No one else would contaminate it with their negative presence. It was my sanctuary. I signed the purchase contract that very afternoon, feeling an excitement I hadn't experienced in years. This was a new beginning, a second chance to live life on my own terms. While waiting for the transactions to be completed, I started getting rid of things. Old furniture that carried too many bitter memories, decorations that Sasha had constantly criticized, objects that simply no longer had a place in my new life. I donated a lot to charities, sold some things, and threw away others. It was cathartic, as if I were cleaning not only my physical space but also my emotional space. Every trash bag I took out, every piece of furniture that was taken away, was a weight off my soul. I was literally leaving the past behind, piece by piece. One afternoon, while organizing old papers, I found photos from when Jamal was a child, pictures of his first day of school, of birthdays, of family vacations when Rob was still alive. My heart tightened when I saw them. This was the boy I had loved unconditionally, the boy who had been my entire world. At what point had he turned into the man who had betrayed me so deeply? I sat on the floor, surrounded by these photographic memories, and for the first time since the confrontation, I cried. I didn't cry for what I had lost, but for what I had never truly had. I had believed we had a special relationship, mother and son, but now I understood that it had been mostly one-sided. I gave, and he took and took, without truly valuing the sacrifice. It was a painful truth, but a necessary one to accept. I kept some photos, the ones from when Jamal was little, when he was still innocent. I left the rest in a box that I planned to give him eventually if we ever spoke again. They were his memories too, even if they were stained by what he had done later. As I was putting the box away, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I hesitated before answering, but something made me press the green button. "Hello, Ellie." It was a male voice I didn't recognize immediately. "Yes. Who is this?" "It's Clarence, from the library book club. We met a few months ago." I vaguely remembered him. I had attended a couple of club meetings before the situation at home became so unbearable that I stopped going. Clarence was an older man, a widower, always kind and with interesting opinions about the books we discussed. "Oh, yes, Clarence. How are you?" I asked, curious as to why he was calling me. "I'm well, thank you. Look, I noticed you stopped coming to the meetings, and I got your number through the librarian. I hope you don't mind me calling." His voice sounded genuinely concerned. "We wanted to know if you were okay, and if you plan to return to the club. Your perspective on the books was always very refreshing." I was pleasantly surprised that someone had noticed my absence. "That's very kind of you to ask, Clarence. I've been going through some major changes in my life, but the truth is, I'd love to come back to the club." "Excellent," he replied enthusiastically. "Our next meeting is next Thursday. We'll be discussing 100 Years of Solitude. Would you like to come?" I smiled. It had been so long since I had smiled about something genuinely positive. "I'd love to. I'll be there." After hanging up, I realized I had been so consumed by the situation with Sasha and Jamal that I had abandoned all the things that made me happy. The book club, the walks in the park, the coffee afternoons with the few friends I still had. I had let them steal not only my money and my peace, but also my social life, my hobbies, and my identity outside of being their victim. But that was ending now. With my new life in a new apartment, I would reclaim everything I had lost and more. Thursday arrived quickly. I got dressed with care, choosing a simple lavender dress that made me feel good. I arrived at the library with the book under my arm and butterflies in my stomach. It was ridiculous to be nervous about a book club, but I had been isolated for so long that any social interaction felt significant. The group welcomed me warmly. Clarence was there, smiling broadly when he saw me walk in. "Ellie, what a joy that you came!" He introduced me to some new members who had joined since my absence. We spent the next 2 hours discussing Garcia Marquez's masterpiece, laughing, debating, and sharing interpretations. I felt alive in a way I had forgotten was possible. Clarence had fascinating opinions on magical realism, and we found ourselves talking even after the official meeting ended. "Would you like to grab a coffee?" he asked me as we put away the chairs. "There's a charming coffee shop 2 blocks from here." I hesitated for only a second before accepting. I would love to. The coffee shop was cozy, with exposed brick walls and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee floating in the air. We sat by a window and ordered our drinks. Clarence told me about his life. He had been an engineer. He had been retired for 5 years. His wife had passed away from cancer 3 years ago. He had 2 adult daughters who lived in other states and visited him regularly. He liked to read, walk, and had recently started taking dance classes. "What about you? He asked with genuine interest. "What have you been doing these months?" I told him about my situation in general terms. I didn't go into all the sordid details, but I explained that I had been living with my son and his wife, that the situation had become unsustainable, and that I was now in the process of starting a new life in a new apartment. He listened without judgment, nodding at the appropriate moments. "It sounds like you made a very brave decision," he said when I finished. "It's not easy to make big changes at our age, but sometimes it's necessary for our happiness." His words were simple but comforting. "You know what?" he continued. "I'm organizing a small group of people to go salsa dancing this Saturday. It's at a club that offers free lessons before the social dance starts. Would you like to come? You don't have to dance if you don't want to, but it's fun, and the energy is wonderful." Dancing. I hadn't danced since before Rob died, but the idea excited me instead of scaring me. "You know what, Clarence? I would love to go." His smile widened. "Perfect. I'll pick you up at 7. We exchanged phone numbers and said goodbye with a cordial hug. As I walked back to my almost empty house, I felt lighter than I had in years. Saturday arrived, and with it, the nerves. I tried on 3 different dresses before deciding on a peach-colored one I had bought years ago, but had never worn. I did my hair, put on a little makeup, and when Clarence rang the doorbell at 7 o'clock sharp, I felt ready for this new adventure. The dance club was packed with people of all ages, but mostly older adults like us. The salsa class was fun and challenging. Clarence was a surprisingly good and patient dancer, guiding me through the basic steps with constant encouragement. "You're doing great," he would tell me every time I stepped on his feet, which was with embarrassing frequency. But I didn't care. I was laughing, moving, feeling the music, living. When the class ended and the social dance began, Clarence took me out on the floor several times. We weren't perfect. We stumbled and laughed at our mistakes, but it was perfect in its imperfection. Over the next few weeks, my life transformed in ways I had never imagined. The sale of the house was completed without a hitch. Aisha handled everything with her characteristic efficiency, ensuring every paper was in order, every signature in place. The day I received the check for the sale money, almost $300,000 after all expenses, I stared at it for several minutes. This money represented more than just a financial transaction. It represented my freedom, my independence, my future. I was no longer tied to a painful past. I could start over, on my own terms, owing nothing to anyone. The move to my new apartment was surprisingly simple. Since I had sold or donated most of my old belongings, I only needed a small truck to transport the essentials. Clarence offered to help, and together with Aisha and a few friends from the book club, we turned what could have been a stressful day into a joyful experience. We carried boxes, assembled furniture, and hung pictures. Aisha brought pizza for everyone, and we ended up sitting in my new living room, eating and laughing as if we were old friends, celebrating something special. And I guess that's exactly what we were doing. We were celebrating my rebirth. I decorated the apartment exactly how I wanted it. Bright, light colors that Sasha had always criticized as being too simple. Plants in every corner because they made me happy, regardless of whether someone said it was unnecessary work. Photos on the walls of happy moments, of trips I wanted to take, of dreams I could still fulfill. Every corner of that space reflected who I truly was, not who someone else had wanted me to be. The terrace became my favorite place. I sat there every morning with my coffee, looking at the park, watching life go on, feeling grateful to be a part of it again. Clarence became a constant presence in my new life, not invasively or hurriedly, but naturally and comfortably. We went to the book club together every week. We danced salsa on Saturdays. We walked in the park on Sundays. Sometimes we just sat on my terrace or his balcony, drinking coffee, talking about books, about life, about our pasts and our futures. It was easy to be with him. There were no games, no manipulation, no impossible expectations, just 2 older people enjoying mutual company, building something genuine and honest. After so many years of toxic relationships, this simplicity was revolutionary. One day, 3 months after moving in, Clarence and I were preparing dinner together in my kitchen. He was chopping vegetables while I seasoned the chicken. We worked in sync, talking about trivial things, laughing at silly jokes. At one point, he stopped and looked at me with a serious expression. "Ellie, there's something I want to tell you." My heart skipped a beat. These last few months have been the happiest I've had since I lost my wife. You've given me back something I thought I had lost forever, the ability to feel joy, to look forward to tomorrow. I don't know exactly what we are, and I don't need labels, but I just need you to know that you are important to me. His words moved me deeply. Clarence, you're important to me too. You helped me remember that life doesn't end when you're betrayed, that there's still goodness in the world. There are still reasons to smile. We hugged in that kitchen, two survivors of difficult lives, finding comfort and hope in each other. 4 months after Sasha and Jamal moved out, I received a call. It was Jamal. My first instinct was not to answer, but something made me press the green button. "Hello, Mama." His voice sounded tired, defeated. "Hello, Jamal." I kept my tone neutral. "I know you probably don't want to talk to me, but I needed to tell you something. Sasha and I officially divorced last week." It didn't surprise me. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said. It was partly true. "How are you?" "I'm surviving. I had to sell my share of the house she bought to pay off debts. Turns out Sasha had taken out several loans in my name without my knowledge. I'm living in a small apartment, basically starting from scratch." There was a long pause. "Mama, you were right. About everything. About her, about me, about what we did. I was a blind idiot." "Jamal," I said carefully, "I appreciate you recognizing your mistakes. That's only the first step. What matters is what you do now with that awareness." "I know." His voice cracked slightly. "I'm in therapy, trying to understand how I became someone capable of treating his own mother that way. I don't expect your forgiveness, but I want you to know that I'm working on being better." For the first time since the confrontation, I felt something akin to hope regarding my son. It wasn't much, just a tiny sprout, but it was there. "I'm glad to hear that, Jamal. I truly am." "Do you think we could ever, I don't know, grab a coffee or something?" he asked timidly. I thought about it carefully. "Maybe when you are ready to be the son I always needed, not the one you were. When you can look at me as a person who deserves respect, not as a resource to exploit, then, yes, we could have coffee." "I understand. Thank you for not completely closing the door. Jamal, you are my son. There will always be a small window open, but rebuilding what was broken will take time. A lot of time. I know, and I'm willing to wait." We ended the call shortly after. I didn't feel the sharp pain I expected. Instead, I felt something like closure. My son was facing the consequences of his actions, learning hard but necessary lessons. Maybe someday we could have some kind of relationship, but even if that didn't happen, I would be fine either way. I no longer needed his validation or love to feel complete. I had myself, and finally, that was enough. 6 months after starting my new life, I was sitting on my terrace on a spring afternoon. The park below was full of families, children playing, couples walking. Clarence would be over soon for our weekly walk. Aisha had called that morning to invite me to dinner with her and her family next weekend. The book club was planning a trip to attend a literary festival in the neighboring city. My calendar was full of plans, of life, of joy. I looked around my small apartment, my personal sanctuary, and smiled. I had lost a lot in those 10 dark years with Sasha and Jamal: money, time, dignity, peace of mind. But what I had gained by freeing myself was invaluable. I regained my voice, my strength, and my ability to choose my own path. I was no longer the Ellie who allowed herself to be walked on. I was no longer the mother who sacrificed herself into invisibility. I was simply Eleanor, a 63-year-old woman who had survived betrayal, found the courage to defend herself, and was now living every day on her own terms. Some people might say I acted harshly, that I was cruel to kick my son and his wife out that way. But I knew the truth. It hadn't been cruelty. It had been justice. It had been self-love. It had been the decision of a woman who finally understood that she couldn't save others by destroying herself. The doorbell rang. It was Clarence, punctual as always, with that warm smile that made my days better. I put on my comfortable walking shoes, grabbed my jacket, and went out to meet him. As I closed the door of my apartment behind me, I thought about how far I had come. The past was the past. The future glowed with possibilities, and the present, this perfect moment, was completely mine. I'm really glad you're here and that I could share my story with you. If you liked it, show me by liking the video and subscribing to my channel. Let's see how many of us there are. Write in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is. I'm so curious to know where all you wonderful people are tuning in from. If you want to support me a little extra, you can also send a small donation. I share new life stories for you every single day. And now, 2 of my most popular stories will pop up on the screen so you can choose what to watch next. The door closed softly behind us with a quiet click, sealing off the noise of the city street and the last echoes of the wedding party still going strong at the grand atrium in downtown Atlanta. We were finally alone in the foyer of my new condo. Our condo, as my mother, Denise, had reminded me for the last 3 months. I slipped off my classic white stilettos, and my feet gratefully met the cool hardwood floor. A whole day in those heels had been torture, but Mom had insisted on that exact style. "Aisha, you must look impeccable," she'd said when I tried to argue that I would prefer something more comfortable. Malik stood beside me, unbuttoning his flawlessly tailored suit. He was a tall, distinguished man of 38, with refined features and deep brown, attentive eyes. His hands were well kept, with long fingers that managed sign language so skillfully whenever he wanted to communicate something. Over the 6 months of our courtship, I had grown accustomed to his silence, to how he communicated with gestures, written notes, and glances. My mother always said it was a small price to pay for such a well-off and respectable husband. Welcome to Betty's Stories. I share new life stories here every day, and I'd really appreciate it if you hit subscribe and gave my video a like. Now, let's jump into the story. I'm sure you'll enjoy it till the end. I turned to him, about to sign my offer of tea, as I had done every time we were together. But before I could raise my hands, Malik looked me straight in the eyes and said in a perfectly clear, deep voice, "Aisha, we need to talk. We need to have a serious conversation about what is really going on." I froze. My heart seemed to skip several beats, then began hammering with double the force. My hands went numb, my knees buckled, and I grabbed the wall to keep from falling. My husband, the one who was supposedly mute since childhood due to some kind of trauma, was speaking clearly, distinctly, with a slight gravelly edge to his voice, but completely normally. I opened my mouth trying to say something, but couldn't squeeze out a sound. Malik took a step toward me, reaching out his hand, but I instinctively recoiled. Something like regret or guilt flashed in his eyes, but he didn't back away. "I'm sorry," he said, and genuine remorse echoed in his voice. "I know this is a shock. Let's sit down, and I'll explain everything. You need to know the truth about who I am, why all this was necessary, and why your mother—" I didn't let him finish. I yanked open the bathroom door, rushed inside, and locked it. I sank onto the edge of the tub, feeling my hands tremble, and tears streamed down my cheeks, smearing my carefully applied wedding makeup. Malik was not mute. All this time, he could talk. All this time, he had been lying to me, pretending, putting on a performance. And my mother? My mother knew. Could my own mother have been complicit in this deception? Thoughts raced through my head, making it impossible to focus. I tried to recall all our dates. Every time Malik used gestures or wrote notes, every moment I'd seen a kind of sadness in his eyes that I'd dismissed as part of his condition. Had everything been a lie? Was every gesture, every look, part of a carefully planned act? I heard his footsteps outside the door, then a soft knock. "Aisha, please come out. I understand your shock. I know you feel betrayed, but give me a chance to explain. Let me tell you how it really was." I didn't answer. I couldn't. A spasm constricted my throat, making it hard to breathe. Instead, I stared at my reflection in the mirror above the sink. A bride in a luxurious white dress that cost more than my annual salary as a high school English teacher, with a neat hairstyle that took 3 hours to create, now with trembling lips and smeared mascara. I looked like a ghost of my own happiness, a happiness that apparently never even existed. I was 27 years old. Most of my peers were already married. Some were raising children, and I was living with my mother in our 3-bedroom apartment in a modest neighborhood, teaching at school, and quietly dreaming of my own family, of a man who would love the real me without conditions or demands. My mother, Denise Holcomb, had always been a woman with a strong personality. After my father passed away 8 years ago, she became even more domineering, more convinced of her own rightness. She decided how I should dress, where I should work, and who I should socialize with. I tried to object, tried to assert my independence, but each time I hit a wall of misunderstanding. "You don't understand how the world works," she would say, shaking her head. "I want the best for you so you don't repeat my mistakes." Her mistakes, as I understood it, were marrying my father for love rather than for financial security. They had lived together for 23 years, and I remembered them as happy and deeply in love. But after his death, Mom seemed to rewrite their entire history, convincing herself that if Dad had been more well off, more successful, he could have afforded better treatment, and then everything would have been different. 6 months ago, she came home with shining eyes and announced that she had found the perfect husband candidate for me. Malik Ellington, the son of an old acquaintance, a successful entrepreneur, owner of a chain of appliance stores, 38 years old, never married, educated, well-mannered, and financially secure. And, Mom added after a pause, he's been mute since childhood due to a trauma. But that shouldn't bother you, she quickly added, seeing my startled face. He writes beautifully, and he's excellent with sign language. Most importantly, Aisha, he's looking for a quiet domestic wife who will create a comfortable home for him. You're the perfect fit. I tried to protest, to say that I wasn't looking for a mail-order husband, that I wanted to meet someone organically, to fall in love. But Mom was adamant. She had already arranged the meeting, already planned everything. And deep down, to be honest with myself, I was tired of resisting, tired of the loneliness, of the looks from co-workers when they talked about their own families, of acquaintances asking, "When are you finally getting married?" Our first meeting took place at a coffee shop downtown. I arrived early, nervous, twisting a napkin in my hands, and then I saw him. Tall, with handsome features, wearing a sharp suit. He walked into the cafe and looked around. Our eyes met, and he gave a warm, sincere smile that made something flutter in my chest. He walked over to my table, greeted me gallantly with a slight bow of his head, and signed that he was happy to meet me. I smiled back awkwardly, unsure how to properly interact with someone who couldn't speak. But Malik seemed to sense my embarrassment and took out a notebook and pen from his pocket. "Please don't hesitate to speak aloud," he wrote in neat, legible handwriting. "I'm an excellent lip reader and understand everything you say. I will write or use gestures myself." The conversation started surprisingly easily. He asked questions about my job, my interests, and my hobbies. He wrote quickly, his pen gliding across the paper, leaving straight lines. I spoke about my love for literature, how much I enjoyed teaching and seeing children discover the world of books. He listened, or rather, read my lips, and I saw genuine interest in his eyes. "I have always admired teachers," he wrote. "It is a noble profession. You shape the future generation and help children find their way." I blushed at his words. Few people took my job so seriously. Most people considered being a high school English teacher to be not a career, but just a way to pass the time until marriage. We met again and again. Malik took me to upscale restaurants, theaters, and exhibitions. He was attentive and thoughtful, always remembering my preferences. If I mentioned that I loved white roses, he would surely have a bouquet of them at our next meeting. If I said I wanted to see a certain movie, he would buy tickets for the next showing. My mother was ecstatic. "See? I told you he was perfect," she repeated every time I returned from a date. He's financially secure, respectable, and treats you like a queen. What more do you need for happiness? I didn't know how to answer. On one hand, Malik was genuinely a pleasant person. He was smart and well-read. We found plenty of common ground. On the other hand, something inside me resisted. Maybe it was the absence of that spark, that magic you read about in novels. Maybe it was just fear of a serious commitment after so many years of single life. After 3 months of dating, Malik proposed. It was in Piedmont Park, where we often walked. He dropped to one knee, pulled out a box with a ring, and wrote on a piece of paper, "Aisha, you make me happy. Be my wife." I looked at him, at the ring with the large diamond that clearly cost a fortune, and couldn't utter a word. A chaos of thoughts spun in my head. Did I love this man? Was I ready to marry him? Did I want to spend the rest of my life with him? But I saw the hope in his eyes. I saw how much this meant to him, and I remembered Mom's words. Love will come with time. The most important thing is respect and care. Maybe she was right. Maybe passionate love only existed in books, and in real life, stability, reliability, and a feeling of security were more important. "Yes," I whispered, and Malik beamed. He slipped the ring onto my finger, hugged me, and I felt his heart beating in his chest, a strong, steady rhythm that should have calmed me. But instead, I only felt a strange emptiness inside. The next 3 months flew by in a whirlwind of wedding preparations. My mother took charge of everything. She chose the ballroom for the reception, made the guest list, ordered the dress, the flowers, and the decorations. I felt like an outsider observing my own wedding, not a participant in it. "Mom, maybe we should do something a little more modest." I tried to argue when she showed me the estimate for the reception for 120 guests. "We don't need that many people." But she waved me off. "Aisha, this is a once-in-a-lifetime event. You should remember this day. Besides, Malik insists on a proper celebration. He wants to show everyone what a beautiful bride he has." Malik genuinely didn't object to any of Mom's decisions. Whenever I tried to discuss details with him, he would just nod and write, "I trust your taste." But I knew it wasn't my taste. It was Mom's, and that irritated me more and more. A week before the wedding, I had a meltdown. I was sitting in my room in yet another wedding gown Mom had forced me to try on, and suddenly I burst into tears. Crying shook my body, smearing my makeup. I didn't understand what was happening to me. I should have been excited, looking forward to the wedding and my new life, but instead, I felt only fear and confusion. Mom walked into the room and stopped, seeing me. "Aisha, what's wrong?" Her voice was full of genuine concern. "I don't know, Mom," I sobbed. "I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. I'm not sure I love Malik. I'm not sure I want to get married." Mom sat down next to me and embraced me. "Sweetheart, this is just pre-wedding jitters. All brides go through this. Malik is a wonderful man. He will take care of you, give you stability, and protect you. And love? Love will come with time, once you're living together and building a family." "But what if it doesn't?" I whispered. "What if I never love him?" Mom sighed and stroked my hair. "Aisha, I lived with your father for 23 years. You know what I regret most? That we were so consumed by love for each other that we forgot about practical things, about saving money, securing the future, taking care of our health, and when he got sick, we didn't have the means for good treatment. If I had chosen a more financially secure husband, perhaps things would have been different. Perhaps your father would still be alive." Her words pierced me. I had never thought about it that way. I had never blamed Mom for Dad's death. It was just a tragic accident, a swift illness that couldn't be stopped. "Mom, that wasn't your fault or Dad's," I said. "It just happened." She shook her head. "Maybe, but I don't want you to make the same mistakes. Malik will give you everything you need. You will never be in need again. You won't worry about tomorrow, and that's more important than romantic feelings, which fade away eventually anyway." I didn't know what to say. Maybe she was right. Maybe I had read too many romance novels and expected the impossible from life. Maybe stability and care were truly more important than butterflies in the stomach and a racing heart upon seeing the one you love. The wedding day was sunny and warm. I woke up early, unrested after a troubled night. The whole house had turned into an anthill. Mom fussed, giving last-minute instructions. The makeup artist and hairstylist worked their magic on me. My bridesmaids chattered, discussing their outfits. My best friend Shayla helped me dress. She was one of the few who knew about my doubts and fears. "Aisha, if you're not sure, it's not too late to call it off," she whispered as she fastened the countless buttons on my gown. I shook my head. "No, it's fine. I'm just nervous, like all brides." She looked at me intently. "Are you absolutely sure you want this? Because a wedding isn't just a beautiful dress and a party. It's a decision for life." "I know," I replied, looking at my reflection in the mirror. The woman in the snow-white dress, with the neat hairstyle and flawless makeup, stared back at me with confusion. She was beautiful, but there was no joy in her eyes, only resignation. But I had already made my decision. Malik was a good man. We would be happy. The ceremony at City Hall passed in a blur. I remember saying, "I do," Malik slipping the wedding band onto my finger, and our kiss under the applause of the guests. His lips were warm and soft. The kiss was gentle and chaste, but I felt nothing but detachment, as if it wasn't happening to me. The reception at the hotel ballroom was lavish. Mom spared no expense. Snow-white tablecloths, fresh flowers on every table, exquisite dishes, expensive champagne, and 120 guests, most of whom I had never met before. Malik's relatives, his business partners, Mom's acquaintances. Everyone smiled, congratulated us, and wished us happiness. Malik sat next to me, holding my hand, occasionally leaning over and writing something on a notepad. Compliments, gentle words that were supposed to make me happy. But instead, I felt only weariness and the desire for it all to end quickly. Mom looked happy and satisfied. She flitted from table to table, accepting congratulations, talking about what a wonderful son-in-law she had acquired. Her eyes shone with triumph, as if she had just won an important battle. "Your mother is so happy," Malik wrote, noticing my gaze on her. "She genuinely cares about your happiness." I nodded, unable to answer aloud whether Mom cared about my happiness or her own peace of mind, knowing I was settled. I didn't know the answer to that question. The evening dragged on forever, dancing, toasts, traditional wedding games. I smiled, thanked people for their congratulations, and danced a slow dance with Malik to a romantic song. His hands on my waist were firm but not clingy. He led me around the dance floor as if I were a fragile porcelain doll who needed to be protected. Finally, around 11 o'clock in the evening, the reception began to wind down. Guests gradually departed, wishing us happiness and urging us to give Mom grandchildren soon. Mom kissed me repeatedly, whispering in my ear, "You made the right choice, my daughter. Be happy." Then she hugged Malik, said something to him, and he nodded in response. We got into the car Malik had hired for our wedding. The driver took us to my new condo, or rather our condo, as Mom kept reminding me. Malik had bought it a month ago, a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment in a new, upscale high-rise near downtown Atlanta. I had only seen pictures of it. He said he wanted to surprise me, furnishing everything himself so I could move into a finished home. The drive took about 20 minutes. We rode in silence. Malik stared out the window, thoughtfully biting his lip. I looked at my hands in their white gloves, at the ring on my finger, which still felt foreign and uncomfortable. Finally, we arrived. The driver opened the door and wished us happiness. Malik took my arm and we walked into the lobby. A brand new, scratch-free elevator whisked us up to the 18th floor. Malik took out the keys, opened the door, and we stepped inside. The condo was spacious and bright, a large living room with floor-to-ceiling windows, a modern kitchen, and 2 bedrooms. The furniture was new, expensive, and tastefully chosen. Everything looked perfect, like a photograph from an interior design magazine. I removed my shoes, and my feet gratefully touched the cool hardwood floor. Malik closed the door, and we were left alone in the silence of the condo that was now supposed to be our home. And then he spoke in that deep, slightly gravelly voice that made my heart freeze, then beat at a frantic pace. Now, I was sitting in the bathroom, listening to him knock on the door again, begging me to come out and talk. But I couldn't bring myself to turn the key, open the door, and look into the eyes of the man who had pretended to be mute for 6 months and now wanted to explain why he had needed to do it. "Aisha, please," his voice sounded pleading. "I know you feel betrayed, and you're right to, but listen to me. Hear me out, and then decide what to do next. I won't hold you if you want to leave, but give me a chance to explain." I looked at my reflection in the mirror, smeared mascara, red eyes, trembling lips. Not a happy bride, but rather the victim of some elaborate prank. Taking a deep breath, I stood up, washed my face with cold water, dried it with a towel, then slowly turned the key and opened the door. Malik stood in the hallway, leaning his back against the wall. He was still in his wedding suit, having only unbuttoned the top few buttons of his shirt and removed his jacket. Seeing me, he straightened up and took a step toward me. "Thank you for coming out," he said softly. "Let's go into the living room and sit down. This is going to be a long talk." I silently walked past him into the living room and sat on the edge of the new leather sofa. Malik sat in the armchair opposite, not next to me, as if understanding I needed distance between us. He was silent for a long time, choosing his words. Then he took a deep breath and began to speak. And what I heard over the next 30 minutes completely overturned my understanding of the last 6 months, of who Malik truly was, and what role my mother played in it all. "I am not mute, Aisha," he began. "I never have been. I was born and raised in a regular family, went to a regular school, and got my degree. Yes, I own my business, the appliance stores. That part is true, but everything else you know about me is a carefully constructed story." I stared at him, unable to believe my ears. He spoke calmly, without emotion, as if talking about the weather or a movie he had watched. 2 years ago, I was married. My wife's name was Chloe. We were together for 5 years. I loved her, and I thought we were fine. But it turned out she had been seeing another man for a long time, over a year. And when I found out, she simply packed her bags and left. She said I was boring and predictable and that things were more interesting with the other man. He paused, and I saw pain in his eyes, a genuine, deep pain of betrayal. The divorce was hard. She demanded half the business and half our assets, and she got it because I was a fool who believed in love and didn't have a prenuptial agreement. After the divorce, I swore to myself I would never marry for love again, that next time I would be smarter, more calculating. "And that's when you decided to pretend to be mute?" I burst out. My voice was strange, raspy from tears. "To test if a woman would marry you for your money, not your charm and eloquence?" Malik shook his head. "Not exactly. The idea wasn't only mine. It was a joint plan with your mother." I froze. Mom knew? Not just knew. She was the initiator. Malik stood up, walked to the window, and stood looking out at the city lights. "Denise Holcomb is my godmother. We've known each other since childhood, although we rarely spoke for many years. But after my divorce, she heard about my situation and offered to meet. She said she wanted to help." I listened, unable to believe my ears. Mom was his godmother? She had never mentioned it, never said she knew Malik since childhood. "She told me about you," Malik continued, "that you were a teacher, that you were smart, kind, domestic, that you weren't spoiled or chasing money, and that you valued real principles. And she suggested we meet." But why pretend to be mute? I didn't understand. If she spoke so highly of me, why all the lies? Malik turned around and looked at me. "Because I was afraid of being fooled again, afraid of trusting the wrong person again." Denise suggested the plan. She said, "If Aisha agrees to marry you even though you can't speak, it will prove that she isn't superficial, that she's interested in the man, not his ability to deliver a pretty speech." "So it was a test? A trial?" I felt anger boiling up inside me. You and Mom decided to test me, like a piece of litmus paper, to see if I was good enough for you? Aisha, it wasn't like that. Malik took a step toward me. I never wanted to hurt you, but after what I'd been through, I simply couldn't trust a woman who would fall in love with my words or my promises. I wanted to find someone who would accept me as I was, without pretense. But you created the pretense yourself. I leaped up from the sofa. You pretended to be someone else. How can I know who you really are if you've been lying to me since the first date? Malik was silent, unable to find the words to respond. And in that silence, I suddenly realized something else, something terrible. Wait, I whispered. Mom, my mother, she insisted on this marriage, convincing me you were perfect. She said love would come with time, that stability was what mattered. She manipulated me. She arranged my life without my consent. Malik didn't answer, but I saw confirmation in his eyes. And then I felt something break inside me. Not anger, not hurt, but something deeper and more painful. Betrayal. Betrayal by the person closest to me, the person I had trusted my entire life. Get out, I said quietly. I don't care where you go. To another room, to friends, to a hotel. But right now, I don't want to see you. I can't. Malik hesitated. Aisha, I truly regret this. I know I acted wrongly, but give me a chance. Get out! I raised my voice, and he flinched. Right now, immediately. He nodded and walked toward the door. At the threshold, he turned back. I'll be at my brother's place. Here's his number in case you decide to talk. He placed a piece of paper on the table by the door. And Aisha, please forgive me. Truly forgive me. The door closed behind him, and I was left alone in this perfect condo he had furnished for our life together. A life built on a lie. I sank onto the sofa, hugged my knees, and wept. I cried over everything. The lost illusions, the trust that had been betrayed, the maternal love that turned out to be so strange and distorted. I cried because I didn't know who I was now, a wife or a deceived fool who had been settled like a mindless child. I don't know how much time passed, maybe an hour, maybe more. When the tears finally stopped, I got up, went to the bathroom, washed my face, took off my wedding dress, threw it on the floor, and changed into a simple nightgown I found in the bedroom closet. Malik had apparently made sure there were clothes for me here. I lay down on the bed, pulled the blanket over me, and stared at the ceiling. Thoughts tormented me, giving me no rest. What should I do now? Forgive him? But how could I forgive such a deception? Leave? But where would I go? Back to Mom, who was part of this plan. The phone on the nightstand suddenly rang, and I flinched. I picked it up and saw Mom's name on the screen. Of course, she was calling. She probably wanted to know how the first night of marriage went, if everything was okay with her perfect plan. I stared at the screen for a long time, then hit the decline button. I couldn't talk to her now. I didn't know what to say, or how not to scream. The phone rang again. I declined the call again. Then a message came. Aisha, why aren't you picking up? Is everything okay? Please call me. I hurled the phone onto the bed and covered my face with my hands. No, Mom, nothing is okay. Your perfect plan fell apart because you forgot one tiny detail. I am not a thing to be arranged and forgotten. I am a living person with feelings, with a right to the truth and a right to my own life. I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, trying to find a comfortable position, but my thoughts gave me no peace. I recalled all my dates with Malik, every moment he used gestures or wrote notes. Was all of it an act? Was every gesture, every smile, a lie? But at the same time, I remembered his eyes, warm, attentive, in which I had seen sincerity, and I recalled his care, his attention to detail. Was all of that pretense too? Or did he genuinely have some feelings for me? No, I whispered into the darkness. How could he have feelings for someone he deceived from the very first meeting? Just before dawn, I finally fell into a restless sleep. I dreamed of the wedding, but all the guests were faceless shadows, and Malik stood at the altar with his mouth sealed shut with thick thread. I tried to scream, tried to say that this was wrong, but no sound escaped my throat. I woke up to a knock at the door. Bright sunlight streamed through the window, indicating that it was well past noon. I got up, put on a robe, and went to the door, still groggy and disoriented. I looked through the peephole and saw Mom. She stood there with grocery bags in her hands, looking worried. I hesitated, not knowing whether to open up. But Mom knocked persistently again, and I realized she wouldn't leave until we talked. I opened the door. Mom came in, put the bags on the floor, and looked at me closely. "Aisha, what happened? You look terrible. Why weren't you answering my calls? Where is Malik?" I silently walked into the kitchen and turned on the kettle. Mom followed me. Her face was full of anxiety. "Aisha, you're scaring me. Tell me what happened." I turned to her, and there must have been something in my eyes that made her take a step back. "Malik can speak," I said in an even voice. "He was never mute. He was pretending all this time, and you knew about it from the beginning." Mom's face went pale, then flushed red. She opened her mouth, then closed it, unable to find the words. "Is it true?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Were you involved in this deception? Did you manipulate me, arrange my life without ever asking for my consent?" Mom leaned against the counter and ran a hand over her face. "Aisha, I can explain everything." "Explain?" I sat across from her. "Explain why my own mother decided she had the right to control my life? Why didn't you tell me the truth about Malik? Why were you part of this whole production?" Mom was silent for a long time, looking out the window. Then she sighed and began to speak. "Malik is my godson. I knew his parents before he was born. We were close friends, but then life took us in different directions, and we hardly spoke. When he got divorced, and I found out what he'd gone through, how he'd been betrayed, I felt sorry for him. He's such a good boy, always hardworking, honest, and respectable. And I thought—" She stopped, choosing her words. "You thought he was the perfect match for me," I finished for her, "and you decided to orchestrate our lives without asking what either of us wanted. Aisha, I meant well." Mom looked at me with a pleading gaze. "You were alone for so long. I saw how you suffered, how lonely you were. And I knew Malik. I knew he was a good man, that he would take care of you and give you everything you needed to be happy. Did I want to harm you?" "No, you didn't," I conceded. "But you decided for me. You were part of a lie that was supposed to be the foundation of my marriage. What kind of relationship can be built on a lie?" Mom shook her head. "It wasn't a lie. Not entirely. Malik truly was looking for a wife. He really wanted to start a family. And this mute experiment was necessary for him to make sure you were marrying him, not for pretty words or promises, but because you saw the person inside. Is that so bad?" "Yes!" I pounded the table with my fist. "Yes, Mom, it's bad, because the foundation of any relationship is trust and honesty. And you two started with deception. How can I ever trust him now? Trust you? How can I know this isn't just another lie, another manipulation?" Mom stood up, came over to me, and tried to hug me, but I pulled away. "Don't. I don't want your hugs right now. I want the truth, the whole truth about what happened and what you planned." Mom sighed, returning to her chair. "Fine, I'll tell you everything." And she told me how Malik came to her after the divorce, broken and having lost faith in love and women. How she offered to introduce him to me, describing how good, reliable, and domestic I was. How Malik agreed to meet, but asked for time to be sure I wasn't like his ex-wife. "The idea for the muteness was his," Mom admitted. "He said he wanted to see how a woman would react to a man who couldn't speak. Would she be patient, kind, or would she run away at the first sign of difficulty? And I agreed, because I also wanted to be sure he was right for you, that he wouldn't hurt you or leave you." "So it was a test for both of us?" I couldn't believe my ears. He was testing me, and you were testing him. Mom nodded. Yes. And when I saw how he treated you, how caring and attentive he was, I knew he was truly a good person, that you would be happy with him. But you forgot to ask what I thought, I said bitterly. You forgot that I have a right to choose, a right to the truth. I thought it would be better this way, Mom said softly, almost whispering. I thought if you found out the truth after the wedding, when you were already together, you would forgive him and understand it was for your own good. I looked at her, my mother, whom I had loved all my life, and felt a strange mix of pity and anger. Pity because I saw she truly believed she was doing the right thing. Anger because she didn't see me as an adult capable of making her own decisions. Mom, I don't know if I can forgive you, I finally said. Not now. Maybe with time. But right now, I need to figure out my own feelings, to understand what I want to do next, and for that, I need to be alone. Mom nodded, wiping the tears that had begun to stream down her cheeks. I understand. Forgive me, Aisha. I truly wanted the best. She stood up, picked up her bag, and turned back at the threshold. If you decide to talk, I'm always here. I love you, my daughter. After she left, I was alone again. I sat on the sofa, hugged my knees, and tried to figure out what to do next. Divorce? File for annulment since the marriage was based on fraud? That seemed like the logical decision, but something inside me resisted. Maybe it was because I remembered Malik's eyes when he asked for forgiveness. Maybe it was because I realized he, too, was a victim in this situation, a victim of his ex-wife's betrayal, a victim of the fear of being deceived again. But that doesn't excuse the lie, I said aloud, as if trying to convince myself. I spent the whole day in the condo, not leaving, not answering calls. I ate what I found in the refrigerator, stared out the window, and tried to read a book but couldn't focus. Toward evening, the doorbell rang again. This time, it was my friend Shayla. I opened the door, and she immediately hugged me. Aisha, your mom called. She said you were in trouble. What happened? I let her in, and we sat on the sofa. I told her everything, that Malik wasn't mute, that it was a fraud from the start, and that Mom had been part of the plan. Shayla listened, her eyes widening in astonishment. When I finished, she was silent for a long time, processing the information. God, Aisha, that's just insane, she finally breathed. So they lied to you from the very beginning. What now? He expects you to just forgive everything and live happily ever after? I shrugged. I don't know what he expects. He went to his brother's place yesterday when I asked him to. Shayla took my hand. What do you want? Not your mother, not Malik, you. What are you feeling? I thought about it. What was I feeling? Anger? Yes. Hurt? Definitely. Disappointment, of course. But there was something else, too. Something I didn't want to admit, even to myself. I don't know, I confessed. I'm angry at him, and I'm angry at Mom. But at the same time, I remember our dates, how attentive and caring he was. And I wonder if that was all just a performance, or if there was something real. Shayla squeezed my hand. Aisha, only you can decide what to do next. But know that whatever you choose, I'll be right here. If you want a divorce, I'll help. If you want to give him a chance, I'll support that too. The main thing is that it has to be your decision, not one forced on you by someone else. Her words warmed me. At least I had one person who wasn't trying to manipulate me or decide what I needed. Thank you, Shayla. Truly, thank you. We spent the whole evening together, talking about various things, trying to distract ourselves from the situation. Shayla made dinner with what she found in the fridge, and we ate as if it were just a normal evening at a friend's place, not the first day after a wedding that turned out to be a deception. When Shayla left, I was alone with my thoughts again. I picked up the phone, looked at the piece of paper with Malik's brother's number that he had left. I stared at the digits for a long time, trying to decide whether to call or not. Give him a chance to explain completely, Shayla's voice echoed in my head. Hear his full story, and then decide. I dialed the number. Ring, ring, ring. I was about to hang up when I heard the familiar voice. Aisha? Hope and fear sounded in Malik's voice simultaneously. Yes, it's me. My voice was calmer than I expected. I need you to come home. We need to talk. Really talk, without secrets or omissions. I'll be there right away, he answered quickly. I'll be there in under 20 minutes. I hung up and went to wash my face and tidy up. I looked at my reflection in the mirror. Pale face, dark circles under my eyes, but a look of determination. I was ready to hear the whole truth, and then decide if this marriage, which started with a lie, had a future. Malik arrived in 17 minutes. I let him in, and we sat in the living room again. Him in the armchair, me on the sofa. There was distance between us, but no longer the abyss there had been yesterday. Talk, I said. Everything from the very beginning, and no sugarcoating. He nodded and began telling me about his marriage to Chloe, how much he loved her, how they planned their future, and how he accidentally discovered the affair by seeing a message on her phone. How she didn't even try to deny it, just said she didn't love him and had wanted to leave for a long time, but was waiting for the right moment. The divorce was messy, he said, and I heard the pain in his voice. She hired a good lawyer, and they took half my business, the condo and the car. I didn't want to fight. I just wanted it all to end quickly. In the end, I was left with almost nothing. I had to start over, take out loans, and rebuild the business. He paused, looking at the floor. And when I finally got back on my feet, when I started thinking about starting a family again, I realized I was afraid of being fooled again, afraid of trusting the wrong person again. And then you came to Denise, your godmother, complained about life, and told her about your fears. And she offered to introduce us, I continued. Yes. She told me about you, how smart, kind, and honest you were, that you weren't chasing money and valued real principles. And I was interested, but the fear was still strong. And that's when I proposed this plan, to pretend to be mute, to see how you would react. Denise was against it at first, but then she agreed. She said she understood my concerns. He looked up, meeting my eyes. And you know what the strangest thing is? I didn't expect to actually like you. I thought it would just be a transaction, a marriage of convenience where we both got what we needed. Me, a calm wife who wouldn't betray me. You, stability and security. But when we started dating, when I got to know you better, I realized that you are special. I was silent, not knowing how to react to his words. You were patient with me, he continued. You taught me signs, even though I already knew them. You talked to me for hours, not caring that I couldn't answer aloud. You saw a person in me, not an invalid. And that moved me more than I could have imagined. He stood up, came closer, but did not sit next to me, respecting my space. Aisha, I know I started wrongly, that I deceived you, and that's unforgivable. But everything that was between us, my attention, my care, my interest in you, all of it was real. I genuinely wanted to know you. I wanted to make you happy. The only difference is that I could talk but chose not to. I looked at him, trying to understand if he was telling the truth or if this was just another lie, beautifully packaged in sincere words. How can I believe you? I asked softly. You deceived me for 6 months, every day, every date. How can I know this isn't just another deception? Malik knelt before me, taking my hands in his. I don't know how to prove my sincerity to you. I don't know how to earn your trust back, but I am willing to spend as much time as it takes. I am ready to start all over, honestly, without games or pretense. Give me a chance, Aisha, one chance to show you I can be real. I looked at him, this man I had married yesterday, without knowing who he truly was, and realized that the decision I made now would determine the rest of my life. Forgive him, give him a chance, or leave, annul this marriage that began with a lie, and try to start life anew. I don't know, I admitted. I don't know what to do. I need time to sort out my feelings, to understand what I really want. Malik nodded. I understand. Take all the time you need. I'll wait. He stood up and headed toward the door. At the threshold, he turned back. Aisha, please know I never wanted to hurt you. Never. And if you decide you can't forgive me, I will accept it. I won't hold you back, and I won't pressure you. After he left, I was alone again. But this time, I didn't cry. I just sat, thinking, trying to understand what I felt. Anger? Yes, it was still there. Hurt, certainly. But there was something else, too. An understanding that Malik had also been wounded by life, that his fears were real, and that he was simply looking for a way to protect himself. But that doesn't excuse the lie, I repeated to myself, like a mantra. I spent the next few days in deep contemplation, not leaving the condo, not answering my mother's calls, who rang constantly, trying to talk. Shayla came over every evening, brought food, and supported me. Malik didn't call or text. He gave me space, just as he promised. But every evening, a bouquet of flowers appeared on the doorstep. White roses, my favorite. With no note, no words, just flowers, reminding me that he remembered, that he was waiting. On the 5th day, I decided to leave the house, take a walk, get some fresh air, and try to look at the situation from the outside. I dressed in simple jeans and a sweater and walked out. I walked for a long time aimlessly, just wandering the streets, watching people. Young couples holding hands, families with children, elderly spouses sitting on a park bench. They all looked happy and content, and I wondered if they knew everything about each other, or if everyone had their own secrets, their own omissions, their own small lies. But there's an abyss between omission and pretense, I reminded myself. I walked into a coffee shop, ordered coffee, and sat by the window, watching the passers-by. Suddenly, I saw Malik. He was walking on the opposite side of the street, talking on his phone, looking tired and stressed. I froze, watching him. He didn't see me. He just walked his path, engrossed in conversation. And in that moment, something clicked in my head. I realized that despite all the deception and all the lies, Malik was a real person with real feelings and fears. Not a villain from a fairy tale, not a cunning manipulator, but just a person who had been hurt and was looking for a way to protect himself. It doesn't excuse him, I told myself, but maybe it explains him. I finished my coffee, paid, and walked outside. Malik was already out of sight, but I knew what I had to do next. I needed to talk to him again, to really talk, without anger or accusations, to try and understand him, just as he apparently had been trying to understand me all those months. That evening, I called him. He answered after the first ring. "Malik," I said, "come over. We need to talk." "I'll be there in half an hour." I hung up and went to wash my face and freshen up. I looked at my reflection in the mirror, pale face, dark circles under my eyes, but a determined gaze. I was ready to hear the whole truth and then decide if this marriage, which started with a lie, had a future. He arrived in 30 minutes. We sat in the living room again, but this time I allowed him to sit next to me on the sofa. "I've been thinking," I started. "I've thought a lot about this situation, about you, about myself, about us, and I realize that I can't just take a step back and forgive you. Trust isn't restored in one day." He nodded. His face was serious. But I also realized that I don't want to just give up. I don't want to destroy what could be because of a bad start. So I propose we start over, truly start over, with a clean slate. Malik looked at me with hope. "What do you mean?" "Let's pretend we just met, that there was nothing between us yet. No deception, no lies, no wedding. Just two people who want to get to know each other, truly get to know each other, without games or pretense." I paused, collecting my thoughts. "But this will be on my terms. No secrets, no omissions, complete honesty about everything, your past, your fears, your hopes, and I will be honest with you. I will tell you about my doubts, my feelings, and what I really think." I agree, Malik said quickly. To any terms. Thank you, Aisha. Thank you for this chance. Don't thank me yet, I stopped him. I'm not promising I can forgive you. I'm not promising things will work out between us. This is just an attempt to see if we have a future. He nodded. I understand, and I will do everything to prove that I am worthy of your trust. We spent the entire evening talking, truly talking, perhaps for the first time since we met. Malik told me about his childhood, his parents, how he started his business, his hobbies, dreams, and fears. And I opened up too, telling him about myself, my relationship with Mom, my job, and what I wanted from life. It was strange to hear his voice, which had been silent for so long. It was deep and pleasant, with a slight gravelly edge. He spoke slowly, thinking over every word, as if afraid to say the wrong thing again. When it got late, Malik stood up, getting ready to leave. I'll see you tomorrow? He asked with hope. I nodded. I'll see you. Come over in the evening and we'll have dinner together. He smiled, and I saw genuine joy in his eyes. With pleasure. After he left, I lay in bed, feeling a strange calm. Not happiness, no, but also not the emptiness and pain that had been there before. Something in between. Hope, perhaps. Hope that we could build something real on the ruins of a lie. The next few weeks were not easy. Malik and I met every day, talking and getting to know each other again, step by step. He took me to restaurants, theaters, and exhibitions, just like before, but everything was different now. Now he was talking, sharing his thoughts and emotions, and I saw the real him, without the mask of muteness. I learned that he loved reading classic literature, especially Dostoevsky, that as a child he dreamed of becoming an architect, but life took a different turn, that he was afraid of heights but never told anyone, that his favorite season was fall because it reminded him of his childhood when he and his parents would pick mushrooms in the woods. And he got to know the real me, not the person I tried to be to meet Mom's expectations. He learned that I love to dance, even though I'm terrible at it, that I dream of writing a novel but am afraid I won't succeed, and that I hate lies in any form, even small, polite ones. I know, he said when I confessed this. That's why I'm so afraid of deceiving you again, even accidentally. Gradually, my anger subsided, replaced by understanding. I still hadn't completely forgiven him, but I was beginning to see the situation from a different perspective, realizing that he was also a victim of a betrayal that destroyed his faith in people. The conversation with Mom was more complicated. I met with her 2 weeks after that first confrontation. We sat in a coffee shop drinking tea, and I could see how nervous she was, twisting a napkin in her hands. Aisha, forgive me, she began. I truly didn't want to hurt you. I just wanted you to be happy, to have everything you needed. Mom, you decided for me, I said calmly. You didn't ask what I wanted. You just created a plan and expected me to follow it like an obedient doll. She lowered her eyes. I know, and I regret it. But you have to understand, after your father died, I was so afraid for you. Afraid you would repeat my mistakes, that you would marry for love to a man who couldn't provide for you. And when the opportunity arose to settle you with Malik, I couldn't pass it up. But Mom, Dad wasn't a mistake, I said gently. You loved each other. You were happy. Wasn't that more important than money and security? She shook her head. You don't understand, Aisha. When your father got sick, when I couldn't afford better treatment, when I watched him fade away day by day, I realized that love wasn't enough. You also need stability and the ability to give the person you love everything they need. I took her hand. Mom, Dad didn't die because of a lack of money. He died because that's what happened in life, and it's wrong to blame yourself for it. You did everything you could. Tears streamed down her cheeks. But I could have done more. If we had money, if I had chosen a more secure husband, maybe everything would have been different. And maybe not, I said. Maybe nothing would have changed, but you would have lived your life with a man you didn't love, and that would have made you unhappy. We sat for a long time, holding hands, crying. It was a catharsis for both of us, a release from old resentments and unspoken feelings. "I forgive you, Mom," I finally said, "but from now on, please trust me. Trust my choices and my decisions. I am an adult woman, and I have the right to my own life." She nodded, wiping her tears. "I promise, I won't interfere again." A month passed since that night Malik spoke. We were still living separately. He was at his brother's, and I was in our condo. But we met every day, rebuilding our relationship, step by step. One evening, as we were walking in the park, Malik suddenly stopped and took my hands. "Aisha, I want to ask you something, and I ask you to be honest." I nodded, feeling my heart start to beat faster. "Do we have a chance? Can you ever forgive me completely and give our marriage a real chance?" I was silent for a long time, thinking. Had I forgiven him completely? No. The scar of the deception still hurt, still reminded me of itself. But I felt we were moving in the right direction, that we were gradually building something real. "I don't know," I answered honestly. "I don't know if I can forgive you completely, but I know that I want to try. I want to give us a chance to become a real family, based on honesty and trust." Malik smiled, and in his eyes, I saw relief and gratitude. "Then let's try together, without secrets, without lies, just the two of us, building our life." I nodded. "Together." We hugged, standing in the park under the autumn trees, and in that moment, I felt that maybe we truly did have a chance to build a happy family despite the wrong beginning. But many more challenges, many more conversations, and a lot of work on rebuilding trust lay ahead. The first challenge didn't keep us waiting. A week after our conversation in the park, Malik moved back into the condo. We agreed to live as roommates, each in our own room, without obligations or pressure. Just two people under one roof who wanted to get to know each other better. The first few days were strange. I was used to being alone, used to silence and freedom, and now I had to share space with a man who was still a mystery to me. We met in the kitchen in the mornings, made breakfast, exchanged awkward glances, and tried to start conversations. Malik tried his best. He made my coffee just the way I liked it, left good morning notes on the fridge, and offered to help with chores. I saw and appreciated his efforts, but inside, I was still on guard. Trust doesn't rebuild quickly, no matter how hard a person tries. One evening, I was cooking dinner while Malik was working on his laptop in the living room. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. I wiped my hands on a towel and went to open it, not expecting any guests. A strange woman stood on the threshold. Beautiful, well-groomed, wearing an expensive coat and high heels. Her long, dark hair was styled perfectly. Her makeup was flawless. She gave me an appraising look from head to toe, and I suddenly felt awkward in my casual jeans and simple t-shirt. "Who are you?" I asked, feeling an unexplained anxiety. The woman smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. "I'm Chloe, Malik's ex-wife, and you, I take it, are the new Mrs. Ellington." My heart sank. Chloe, the woman who had betrayed Malik, the reason he had lost faith in love and started this whole mute performance. "What do you want?" I asked coldly, not inviting her in. Chloe looked over my shoulder into the apartment. "I need to talk to Malik. It's important." "I'm here," Malik's voice said from behind me. He walked up and placed a hand on my shoulder, a gesture that was both protective and comforting. "What are you doing here, Chloe?" Chloe smiled again, the same cold smile. "Can't you guess?" "I came to talk about our past, about what we had, and what, perhaps, we could still have." I felt Malik tense up next to me. His hand tightened on my shoulder. "We don't have a future, Chloe. We don't even have a present. There is only a past that ended 2 years ago." Chloe shook her head. "You think so, Malik? We were married for 5 years. 5 years of my life I gave to you. Do you really think you can just erase me and start over? With her?" She nodded in my direction, and the contempt in her gaze made anger boil up inside me. "She is my wife," Malik said firmly. I ask you to respect her. As for us, it's been over for 2 years. You made that choice yourself when you cheated on me and left for another man." Chloe sighed, and I noticed her eyes momentarily fill with tears, but she quickly composed herself. "I made a mistake, Malik. I realized it too late, but I did realize it. That man, he left me after 6 months. He said I was just a distraction. And you were real. You loved me genuinely, and I was too foolish to appreciate it." I looked at her, and despite all the anger I felt, I couldn't help but notice the pain in her eyes, a genuine, deep pain of remorse. "Chloe, even if that's true, it's still too late," Malik said. There was no anger in his voice, only weariness. "I've moved on. I have a new life, a new relationship, and I don't want to go back to the past." Chloe looked at me, then back at Malik. "Do you truly love her? Or is this just an attempt to forget me?" Malik was silent, and that silence lasted too long. I felt something clutch inside me. Why wasn't he answering immediately? Why was he hesitating? "I am building a relationship with her," he finally said. "An honest, open relationship. I ask you to respect that and leave us in peace." Chloe nodded, and a single tear rolled down her cheek. "Fine, I'll leave. But know this, Malik. If you ever change your mind, if you ever want to give us a second chance, I'll be waiting." She turned and walked toward the elevator without looking back. Malik closed the door and leaned his back against it, closing his eyes. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I didn't know she would come. I didn't know she wanted to come back." I stood with my arms crossed over my chest, feeling a strange mix of anger, jealousy, and doubt. "You hesitated," I said. "When she asked if you loved me, you hesitated." Malik opened his eyes and looked at me. "Aisha, I hesitated not because I'm thinking about Chloe. I hesitated because I don't know if I have the right to talk about love after what I did, after deceiving you for 6 months." He walked closer and took my hands in his. "But if you're asking if I have feelings for you, the answer is yes, I do. Strong, deep feelings that have grown with every meeting we've had. And no, I don't want to go back to Chloe. I don't want to go back to a past that was only pain and betrayal." I looked into his eyes, trying to gauge if he was telling the truth, and I saw a sincerity so clear that I couldn't help but believe him. "All right," I said softly, "but if she shows up again, if she tries to get you back, I want to know about it, immediately. No secrets." Malik nodded. "I promise. No secrets." We returned to our normal routine, but Chloe's visit left a mark. I caught myself thinking about her, that they had been together for 5 years, that they had a history, a connection that we didn't have, and that gave rise to doubts. Was I good enough? Could Malik truly forget her and build something with me? Shayla, when I told her about Chloe's visit, was adamant. "Aisha, don't let that witch ruin what you and Malik are building. She showed up because she found out he got married. She's just jealous that he was able to move on and she was left alone." "But she was his first love," I countered. 5 years of marriage is a long time. How can I compete with that?" Shayla grabbed my shoulders and forced me to look into her eyes. "You don't have to compete. You just have to be yourself. If Malik chose you, it means he sees something in you that wasn't in Chloe. Trust him, and trust yourself." I tried to follow her advice, but it wasn't easy. Every time Malik was late from work, every time he was silent, lost in his thoughts, I thought, what if he's thinking about her? What if he regrets marrying me? The situation escalated 2 weeks later when I accidentally saw a text message on Malik's phone. He had left it on the kitchen table and gone to shower. The screen lit up with an incoming message, and I instinctively looked. "I can't stop thinking about you. Please meet me, just once. Chloe." My heart stopped. They were texting. Despite all his promises, despite what he had said about wanting only me, they were texting. When Malik came out of the shower, I was sitting on the sofa with his phone in my hands. He saw my face and immediately understood what had happened. "Aisha, I can explain." "Explain," I said coldly, handing him the phone. "Explain why your ex-wife is texting you that she can't stop thinking about you. Explain why you're exchanging texts when you promised everything was over." Malik took the phone and looked at the message. "This is her first message in 2 weeks. I haven't answered her. I haven't sought a meeting." He showed me the message history. Indeed, there were only messages from Chloe, dozens of them, begging for a meeting, saying she missed him, that she wanted to come back. But there was not a single response from Malik. "Why didn't you block her number?" I asked, feeling my anger slowly give way to bewilderment. Malik sat down next to me on the sofa. "Because I was afraid it would look like running away, like I still feel something for her and therefore have to avoid her. I wanted to show that I didn't care, that her words didn't affect me." "But they do affect me," I said softly. "Every message she sends, every attempt to get you back, affects me because I'm unsure, Malik. I'm unsure about us, about what we're building, and when she appears, all my doubts return." Malik took my phone, went into the contacts, found Chloe's number, and then, without saying a word, blocked it. Then he did the same with his own phone. "See," he said, showing me the screen, "I'm blocking her forever. She can't contact me anymore. And if she tries to find another way, I'll tell her directly that I don't want any communication." I looked at him, feeling contradictory emotions battling inside me, gratitude for the gesture, guilt for making him do it, and relief that he chose me. "Thank you," I whispered. "That really means a lot to me." Malik hugged me, holding me close. "I know, and I want you to feel secure, to know that I chose you not out of calculation or some kind of game, but simply because I want to be with you." We sat, embracing, and I felt something warm gradually growing inside me, something that resembled trust, not complete, not absolute, but a beginning, the start of a real relationship, built not on deception, but on honesty and mutual respect. But life, as it turned out, was not ready to give us a break yet. A week later, I came home from work and found an envelope in the mailbox with no return address. I opened it and froze. Inside were photographs, pictures of Malik and Chloe from their life together. In some, they were happy, smiling, embracing. In others, on their wedding day, looking so in love, so content. And a note written in a woman's handwriting. "He was happy with me, truly happy. Can you give him the same?" I stood in the foyer, holding those photos, feeling everything inside me clench with pain. They truly looked happy, truly in love. And who was I? A rebound? An attempt to forget? An experiment that went wrong? When Malik came home from work, I silently handed him the envelope. He looked at the photos and his face darkened. "It's Chloe," he said. "She won't give up. She's trying to destroy what we have." "And what do we have, Malik?" I asked tiredly. "What are we building?" Because honestly, I don't know. We live under the same roof, but in different rooms. We're married, but our marriage started with a lie. We talk about feelings, but I'm not sure they're real. Malik put the photos on the table and walked over to me. "Aisha, I understand your doubts. I understand it's hard to believe in the sincerity of a person who started with a lie. But I am truly trying. I genuinely want to build something real with you." "Then prove it," I said, surprised by the firmness of my voice. "Prove it not with words but with actions, because I've already heard words from you, from Mom, from everyone who supposedly cared about my well-being. I need action." "What do you want me to do?" Malik asked. "Tell me and I'll do it." I thought about what I truly wanted. Did I want him to prove his love? But how can feelings be proven? Did I want him to cut all ties with the past? He had already blocked Chloe. What did I really want? "I want to meet your family," I finally said. "Your parents, your brother. I want to see how they feel about you, about us, about this marriage. I want to understand who you truly are, not through your words, but through the people who have known you your whole life." Malik nodded. Okay, I'll call my parents and arrange a meeting. They've wanted to meet you for a long time, but I kept putting it off, thinking we needed to sort out our relationship first. The meeting was set for the following weekend. We drove to Malik's parents' country home. On the way, I was nervous, twisting my purse in my hands, rehearsing what I would say. "Don't worry," Malik reassured me, putting his hand on my knee. "They're good people. They'll love you." His parents' home was large and cozy, with a garden and a patio. We were greeted by Malik's mother, Brenda Ellington, a smiling woman in her 60s with kind eyes and a warm embrace. "We finally meet," she exclaimed, hugging me. "Malik has told me so much about you. Come in, don't stand at the door." Malik's father, Arthur Ellington, was more reserved, but also welcoming. He shook my hand and looked closely into my eyes, as if assessing me. During lunch, Brenda asked me about my job, my family, and my interests. I answered, trying to be honest and open. I talked about the school, my students, and my love for literature. "Teacher, a noble profession," Arthur remarked. "My mother taught math her whole life. I saw how much effort and heart she put into her students." After lunch, Malik went with his father to the workshop to discuss some business matters, and I stayed in the kitchen with Brenda. We were washing dishes when she suddenly asked, "Aisha, may I ask you a personal question?" I tensed. "Of course." "Are you happy with my son? Truly happy?" I froze, not knowing how to answer. Was I happy? Or was I just trying to build something from the ruins of a deception? I don't know, I confessed honestly. It's all so complicated. Our marriage didn't start the way it should have, and I'm still trying to figure out what I feel, whether I can trust him. Brenda nodded, wiping a plate. "Denise told me about your situation, about the plan she and Malik came up with. I was against it from the start, you know. I told my son you shouldn't build a relationship on lies, but he was so wounded after his divorce from Chloe, so afraid of being deceived again, that he wouldn't listen." She turned to me, putting a hand on my shoulder. "But I saw how he changed after he met you. Even when he was still pretending to be mute, I saw something new in his eyes. Lightness, joy, hope. The Malik I hadn't seen in 2 years. And I knew you were special to him. Not just a wife of convenience, but a person who truly mattered." Her words warmed me and gave me hope. "The truth is hard, dear," she continued. "My son isn't perfect. He made a big mistake by starting your relationship with a lie, but he's trying to make amends. He's trying to be a better man for you. Isn't that worthy of a second chance?" I thought about it. Maybe she was right. Maybe all people make mistakes. And what matters isn't how you start, but how you try to correct your errors. As we were leaving, Brenda hugged me goodbye and whispered in my ear, "Give him a chance, Aisha. Give both of you a chance to be happy." On the drive home, I was thoughtful. Malik noticed. "What are you thinking about?" "About us," I answered. "About what your mother said. About how maybe we really do deserve a chance." Malik took my hand and kissed my fingers. "We do deserve it, Aisha. I believe that." When we got home, a surprise awaited us. Chloe was sitting by the door. She looked tired and disheveled, completely unlike the well-groomed woman I had seen the first time. "Malik, please, hear me out," she began, standing up. "I know you blocked me, but I really need to talk." "We have nothing to talk about, Chloe," Malik said sharply. "How many times do I have to repeat it? It's over between us." "I'm pregnant," Chloe blurted out, and both of us froze. The world seemed to stop. I looked at Chloe, trying to understand if I had heard correctly. Pregnant? By whom? Malik? "That can't be my child," Malik said slowly. "We haven't been together for 2 years. Chloe shook her head, and tears streamed down her cheeks. "No, it's not your baby. I met another man after we broke up, the one I left you for. We were together for a few months, and then he found out about the pregnancy and disappeared. He just up and vanished, without even saying goodbye." She sank to the floor right by the door, hugging her knees. I realized what a mistake I made, a huge, unforgivable mistake. I had you, Malik, a man who loved me and cared for me, and I chose adventures and thrills. And what did I get? I'm pregnant and alone by a man who didn't even bother to say goodbye, and you're no longer in my life. She looked up at us, her eyes full of despair. I'm not asking you to come back. I know that's impossible. I just wanted you to know how much I regret what I did. She stood up, wiping her tears. I'm sorry I bothered you. I won't come back or write again. I wish you happiness, Malik. Real happiness, the kind I couldn't give you. She left, and we were left standing in the foyer, processing what had just happened. Do you really want to help her? I asked. Malik looked at me. I don't want to go back to her, if that's what you mean, but she was part of my life for 5 years. I can't just ignore her when she's in trouble. That wouldn't be right. I thought about it. He was right. Despite everything that had happened, Chloe was a person in need, and to ignore that would be to lose a piece of our humanity. All right, I said. Help her, but keep me informed. I want to know how you're helping her and when you meet with her, if you do at all. Complete transparency, remember? Malik hugged me. Thank you for understanding. Complete transparency, I promise. Over the next week, life settled down. Chloe didn't show up again. She only occasionally sent Malik short messages thanking him for the financial help. He showed me every message, every money transfer, no secrets. Malik and I were growing closer. Gradually, step by step, we cooked dinner together, watched movies, and walked in the park. Normal things that normal couples do, and it felt pleasant, calm, and right. One evening, as we were sitting on the sofa after dinner, Malik suddenly said, Aisha, I want to tell you something important. I tensed. Every time he started like that, I expected another confession, another secret from the past. I love you, he simply said. I know I said it before, but now I want to say it differently. Without reservations, without doubts. I love you, Aisha. I love your kindness, your strength, and your capacity for forgiveness. I love the way you smile when you read a book. I love the way you talk about your students with such tenderness. I love everything about you. I looked at him, feeling my eyes fill with tears. No one had ever said such words to me, so sincerely, so openly. I'm not asking you to say it back right now, he continued. I know you need time, that trust is rebuilt slowly. I just want you to know what I feel, without games, without pretense, just the truth. I reached out my hand and touched his cheek. Thank you for your honesty, for not pressuring me or rushing me. He covered my hand with his. We have time, Aisha, our whole lives ahead of us. But life, as it turned out, had one more test for us. A month later, I felt unwell. Morning sickness, dizziness, and weakness. At first, I blamed it on stress, on being overtired from work, but when the symptoms didn't pass after a week, I decided to go to the doctor. The test showed 2 lines. I was pregnant. I sat in the gynecologist's office, holding the test results, unable to believe it. Pregnant. I was pregnant with Malik's child, the man I wasn't even living with as husband and wife because I wasn't ready for that intimacy yet. But how? I whispered. The doctor smiled. You are married, as far as I can tell from your paperwork. Were you not using birth control? I blushed. We didn't use protection that one night after the wedding, when Malik still hadn't confessed that he could speak. The night I tried to forget, to erase from my memory, because it was based on deception. I didn't think it would happen from one time. The doctor shrugged. It happens. Congratulations. You'll be a mother in about 7.5 months. I left the hospital in complete shock. Pregnant. I was going to have a baby. With Malik, the man in a relationship I was still unsure about. What should I do? Tell him? Of course I had to. But how would he react? Would he be happy or scared that it was too soon, that we hadn't sorted out our relationship yet? I walked around in a fog all day, rehearsing how I would tell him. When Malik came home from work, I was sitting in the kitchen, nervously fiddling with a napkin. "Aisha, what's wrong?" He immediately noticed my state. "You look pale." "I need to tell you something," I began, my voice trembling. "Something important that will change everything." Malik sat across from me and took my hands in his. "Tell me. Whatever it is, we'll get through it." "I'm pregnant," I blurted out, then fell silent, waiting for his reaction. Malik froze. His eyes widened, his face went pale, then flushed red. He opened his mouth, then closed it, speechless. "You're pregnant? With my baby?" I nodded. "From that night after the wedding. I didn't expect it. I didn't think it would happen from one time." Malik suddenly stood up, walked over to me, and hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. This is the best news of my life. The best, Aisha. We're going to have a baby, our baby. I felt tears streaming down his cheeks, tears of joy, happiness, and hope. "Aren't you scared?" I asked. "Don't you think it's too soon?" Malik pulled back and looked into my eyes. "Of course I'm scared. Scared I'll be a bad father, that I won't cope. But I'm more happy. Because this baby connects us. It gives us another chance to become a real family." His words warmed me. Maybe this truly was a chance to build something real and solid, founded not on deception, but on love for our future child. "But I don't want you to stay with me just because of the baby," Malik added. "If you still have doubts about us, if you don't feel like you can trust me, tell me. I will be involved in the baby's life and help you, but I won't hold you in a relationship where you are unhappy." I looked at him, this man who started with a lie but was now completely honest, and suddenly I realized that despite all the fear and all the doubts, I wanted to try. I wanted to give us a chance to become a family. "I'm staying," I said, "not just because of the baby, but because I think I'm starting to love you. Truly love you." Malik hugged me again, and we stood there for a long time, holding each other, feeling something new growing between us. Not passion, not infatuation, but something deeper, more enduring. Love built on honesty, trust, and mutual respect. The following months were challenging but happy. The pregnancy went smoothly, and I gradually got used to the idea of becoming a mother soon. Malik was by my side every second. He came to all the doctor's appointments, read books about pregnancy and childbirth, and prepared the nursery. Mom, when she heard about the pregnancy, was ecstatic. "See, my daughter? I told you Malik was perfect. Now you'll have a complete family." I didn't argue with her, though I wanted to say that a family is built on love, not calculation. But Mom was happy, and I didn't want to ruin her mood. We no longer crossed paths with Chloe. Malik continued to help her financially until she gave birth. Then she herself refused the help, saying she had found a job and could provide for herself and the baby. "Do you think she'll manage?" I asked Malik one day. "I think so," he replied. "Chloe is a strong woman when she wants to be. Maybe motherhood will change her, make her more responsible." In the 7th month of my pregnancy, Malik and I finally decided to live as true husband and wife, no longer in separate rooms, but together in the same bed. It felt strange and exciting at the same time, but also right, as if everything had finally fallen into place. "Aisha," Malik said one night as we lay embracing, "thank you." For what, I wondered. For giving me a chance. For not giving up when it would have been easier to leave. For believing in us. I turned to him and looked into his eyes. "I want to say thank you, too, for changing, for learning to be honest, and for loving me despite all my fears and doubts." He kissed me tenderly, carefully, as if I were the most precious thing he had. And in that moment, I knew that yes, I loved him, deeply and truly. The birth started 2 weeks early. I woke up in the middle of the night with sharp pain in my lower abdomen. Malik woke up immediately and jumped out of bed. "The contractions are starting." I nodded, clenching my teeth against the pain. "I think so." He was amazing, calm, collected, and knew exactly what to do. He helped me get dressed, packed the bag we had prepared in advance, and called a taxi. On the way to the hospital, he held my hand, comforting me and telling me everything would be fine. The labor was long and hard, 14 hours of pain, exhaustion, and fear. But Malik was by my side every minute. He never left, wiped my brow, and whispered words of encouragement. And finally, when I thought I couldn't bear it anymore, a cry rang out, the cry of our daughter who had just come into the world. "It's a girl," the midwife announced, placing the tiny bundle on my chest. "Congratulations, a healthy, beautiful girl." I looked at the little human, at her wrinkled red face, at her tiny fingers already clutching my hand, and felt an incredibly overwhelming feeling of love wash over me. "Our daughter," I whispered, unable to look away. Malik stood beside me, tears streaming down his cheeks. "Our baby girl is the most beautiful in the world." We named her Nova, meaning new, and she truly was our new love, the center of our universe from the very first second. The first few months of motherhood were tough. Sleepless nights, constant exhaustion, and the fear that I was doing something wrong. But Malik was right there with me every second, helping with every little thing. He got up at night so I could sleep, changed diapers, and rocked Nova when she cried. I saw him look at our daughter with such tenderness and adoration that my heart swelled with happiness. He was a wonderful father, attentive, caring, and always ready to help. "You are an amazing mother," he said one day as we sat watching Nova sleep in her crib. "And you are an amazing father," I replied, taking his hand. He looked at me, and there was so much love and gratitude in his eyes that I felt tears well up. "Aisha, I want to say it again. Forgive me for how we started, for the deception, the lies, the games. If I could go back, I would do everything differently. I would start honestly, openly." I shook my head. "Don't. What's done is done. We can't change the past, but we can build the future, and I think we're doing a pretty good job of it." Malik hugged me, holding me close. "I love you, Aisha. I love you more than life itself." "I love you, Malik," I said, "despite everything." We sat like that, embracing, listening to our daughter's quiet breathing. And I felt that, yes, we were happy. Despite the difficult start, despite all the challenges, we had found each other, found true love, found a real family. A year passed. Nova grew, delighting us every day with her smiles, first words, and first steps. Malik and I grew closer, stronger. The trust that had been destroyed in the beginning gradually returned. Not completely, perhaps, because scars remain forever, but enough for us to feel secure with each other. One day, Malik came home from work with a mysterious smile. "I have a surprise for you," he said, pulling an envelope from his pocket. I opened it and saw 2 tickets to Paris for 2 weeks. "But how?" I was surprised. "What about Nova?" "My parents agreed to watch her," he said. "They've wanted to spend more time with their granddaughter for a long time, and we need a vacation. Time just for the 2 of us." I looked at the tickets, and contradictory feelings battled inside me. On one hand, I had dreamed of such a trip. On the other, I was afraid to leave Nova, afraid something would happen while I was away. "Don't worry," Malik said, as if reading my thoughts. "She'll be fine. Mom will manage perfectly, and we need time alone to remember that we're not just parents, but husband and wife." He was right. We deserved this vacation, these 2 weeks just for us. Paris was magical. We walked through the narrow streets, drank coffee in small cafes, went up the Eiffel Tower, and admired the Louvre. Malik was attentive and romantic, just as I had dreamed my husband would be. One evening, as we sat on the banks of the Seine, watching the sunset, Malik suddenly knelt. "What are you doing?" I was surprised. He pulled out a box and opened it. Inside was a ring, not as lavish as the one he gave me with the first proposal, simple, elegant, with a small heart-shaped stone. Aisha, I know we're already married. I know we have a daughter and a family, but I want to do this properly. I want to ask you again, genuinely, without games or deception, will you marry me? Will you become my wife, not by someone else's plan, but by your own choice? I looked at him, this man who had traveled such a long road from deceiver to honest, loving husband and father, and I felt my heart overflow with love. Yes, I whispered through my tears. 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring onto my finger, hugged me, and kissed me. And in that moment, I felt that everything we had been through, all the challenges and doubts, was worth it, because it had led us here, to this moment of true love and happiness. When we returned home, Nova greeted us with joyful cries, holding out her little arms. We hugged and kissed her, telling her how much we missed her. I realized that this was happiness, not perfect, not from a fairy tale, but real, hard-won, and deserved. Another 2 years passed. Nova started preschool. Malik and I lived a calm, measured life. Work, family, friends, the ordinary life of an ordinary couple who loved each other. Mom sometimes came to visit, helped with Nova, and told me about her life. Our relationship had mended, although I still remembered her role in that deception. But I had forgiven her, understanding that she truly meant well, just by the wrong path. Shayla became Nova's godmother and our family friend. She often came over, played with our daughter, and chatted with me about life. You know, Aisha, I'm proud of you, she said one day. You managed to turn a lie into truth, a deception into real love. That counts for a lot. Chloe got married 1.5 years after Nova was born to a good man who accepted her child as his own. She sent Malik an invitation to the wedding. And surprisingly, we went. It felt strange, but right, to show that we held no grudges, that we wished her happiness. Thank you for coming, she said at the wedding, walking over to us. And thank you for everything, Malik, for the help, for the understanding. You were better than I deserved. Malik nodded. Be happy, Chloe. You deserve it. One day, when Nova was 3 years old, she asked, Mommy, Daddy, do you love each other? Malik and I exchanged glances and smiled. Yes, sweetie, I replied. We love each other very much. And how did you meet? I hesitated. Should I tell the truth about how it all started with a lie or make up a beautiful story? Malik took my hand and squeezed it. We met in a very unusual way, he began. At first, we didn't understand each other and we made mistakes, but then we learned to be honest and open, and now we are a family. Nova nodded, satisfied with the answer, and ran off to play with her toys. Thank you, I whispered, for not lying to her. I don't lie anymore, Malik replied. Never to anyone. I learned that, thanks to you. I hugged him, and we sat there, holding each other, watching our daughter play. And I thought about the incredible journey we had traveled, from that night when he spoke and shattered all my illusions, to this day when we were a happy family, founded on love and trust. Yes, we started with a lie. Yes, our marriage was based on deception and manipulation, but we managed to turn that into something real, something beautiful, because it doesn't matter how you start. What matters is how you continue and how you finish. And our story, which began on that strange evening when my mute husband spoke, turned into a story of true love. A love that withstood the test of deceit, doubt, and fear, and survived, growing stronger and more genuine. Sometimes, falling asleep next to Malik, I remember that night, the moment the door closed behind us, and he spoke his first words. Words that destroyed my world, but, at the same time, gave birth to something new. I don't regret giving him a chance. I don't regret not leaving when it would have been the easiest thing to do, because if I had left, I would have missed this love, this family, and this happiness we built together. Yes, it wasn't easy. Yes, there were moments when I wanted to give up, when it seemed easier to start over with someone else than to restore broken trust. But I held on. We both held on, and it was worth it. Our story is not a fairy tale with a perfect prince and a flawless princess. It is the story of two ordinary people who made mistakes, hurt each other, and doubted, but who, despite all that, chose each other, chose again and again to be together, to work on the relationship, and to build something real. And now, years after that fateful night, I can say with certainty, I am happy, truly, profoundly happy. I have a husband who loves me and whom I love. I have a daughter who fills our life with joy. I have a family, a real family, built on honesty and mutual respect. Sometimes Mom asks, "Have you forgiven me for that plan? For being part of the deception?" And I always answer, "Yes, Mom, I've forgiven you. Because despite the wrong methods, you helped me meet the man I am truly happy with." Malik often asks too, "Do you ever regret not leaving then, for giving me a chance?" I always say, "No, I don't regret it for a second, because you were worth that chance." Our story is a story about forgiveness, about how people can change, grow, and become better, about how mistakes don't define us. What matters is how we try to fix them. Our story is a story about trust, about how difficult it is to rebuild when it's broken, but how it is possible if both people are willing to work at it, to be honest and open with each other. Our story is a story about love, real love that doesn't come at first sight, is never perfect or easy, and demands work, patience, and understanding, but which ultimately provides more happiness than any romantic fairy tale. And when Nova grows up and asks me how to build a relationship, I will tell her our story, honestly, without pretense. I will tell her how we started with a lie, but were able to build a true love. I will tell her that what matters is not how you begin, but how you continue. I will tell her that forgiveness is not weakness, but strength. That giving people a second chance is not foolishness, but wisdom. That love is not just butterflies in the stomach and a racing heart, but the daily work of building a relationship, building yourself, and building trust. I hope that when she meets her person, she will be wiser than us, that she won't start with a lie, but will immediately build a relationship on honesty and openness. But if something goes wrong, if she faces betrayal or lies, I hope she remembers our story and understands that anything can be fixed if both people truly want it. Because that desire to be together, no matter what, is what true love is. Not perfect, not from fairy tales, but real, the kind that lasts a lifetime. And when I look at Malik, at the way he plays with our daughter, how he laughs at her jokes, how he kisses her goodnight and tells her stories, I know I made the right choice. The choice to stay, the choice to forgive, the choice to give us a chance. Because love is a choice, not a feeling that comes and goes, but a daily choice to be there, to support, to love, and to forgive. And I choose Malik every day, just as he chooses me. And ultimately, that's all that matters. I'm really glad you're here and that I could share my story with you. If you liked it, show me by liking the video and subscribing to my channel. Let's see how many of us there are. Write in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is. I'm so curious to know where all you wonderful people are tuning in from. If you want to support me a little extra, you can also send a small donation. I share new life stories for you every single day. And now, 2 of my most popular stories will pop up on the screen so you can choose what to watch next.